Discovery, go and throttle up.
Discovery, roger, go for deploy.
Thanks to everybody in the shuttle program. The crew is go for launch.
Roger, nice to be in orbit.
We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
Spacecraft as we await its departure from the International Space Station. We expect Dragon Endeavour to push away from the space station with the Crew-2 astronauts on board just after 11:05 a.m. Pacific time, making their way back to planet Earth. My name is Kate Tice, and I'm a senior certification engineer here at SpaceX. I'm very excited to bring you live coverage of Crew Dragon completing its second long-duration mission with people on board as part of our Crew-2 mission for NASA. Joining me today with NASA Communications, Gary Jordan.
Hey, Kate, it's great to be here for the third crew return in NASA's Commercial Crew Program, the second as part of a crew rotation mission. At this moment, NASA astronauts Shane Kimbrough and Megan McArthur, JAXA astronaut Akihiko Hoshide, and ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet are making their final preparations to load into Dragon and prepare to come home. Once Dragon departs the station, Crew 2's flight home is expected to last a little more than 8 hours, including a fly around of the International Space Station, 4 departure burns that move the Dragon away from the station, a phasing burn to lower its orbit and line the spacecraft up with the landing location, and one final deorbit burn. Dragon is targeted to splash down off the coast of Pensacola, Florida, in the Gulf of Mexico tomorrow, today, later tonight, at 7:33 p.m. Pacific Standard, 10:33 p.m. Eastern Standard, followed by the crew getting picked up at sea by one of SpaceX's recovery vessels, in this case, the Go Navigator.
This mission began 6 months ago on April 23, 2021, from historic Launch Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. After a successful liftoff and separation from Falcon 9, Crew 2 enjoyed a roughly 24-hour flight on board Dragon on their way to the International Space Station. Since arriving, the 4 astronauts supported hundreds of experiments and took part in day-to-day operations during Expeditions 65 and 66. Kimbrough, Pesquet, and Hoshide completed several spacewalks in support of solar array panel upgrades, deploying 2 new arrays and preparing a support bracket for additional arrays.
After 199 days in space, they are entering the final phase of their mission, and in just a few hours from now, they've been preparing for over 2 weeks for this return flight. Today on board the space station is the Expedition 66 crew, now led by Roscosmos cosmonaut Anton Shkaplerov. Also on board is NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei and Roscosmos cosmonaut Pyotr Dubrov. The weather right now at Pensacola is looking fantastic. That is the prime landing site for today. We just did a go, no-go poll about 15-20 minutes ago, and the teams polled go, so we are ready to undock.
Yeah, it's definitely something we've been keeping our eye on. Now, the ground teams have been performing a number of checkouts. In addition to the weather, keeping our eye on the weather, the ground teams have been performing a number of checkouts and preparation checks on the vehicle, such as heat shield inspections, checking out the suits, seat actuator checkouts, of course, prop checkouts, and of course, cargo load. Crew Dragon is the only vehicle capable of bringing back significant amounts of cargo from the space station, so getting all of that locked and loaded in place. Now let's go over to Shaniqua Vereen at the Johnson Space Center to talk a bit about how the station crew have been preparing to send Crew 2 home and what we can expect from here until Dragon departs station. Shaniqua?
Thanks, Kate and Gary, and welcome inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. I'm NASA's Shaniqua Vereen, and we are currently awaiting Crew 2 to ingress. I did see 2 of them float into the capsule, but we're still waiting on the other 2. They will board Dragon and be on their return flight home. Crew ingress just started around 10:50 a.m. Central Time, 16:50 GMT, or just about a minute ago. We're going to take a look at the major upcoming milestones, not only for today's departure, but for the splashdown later tonight. So, as we said, crew ingress is currently underway. we're waiting for the rest of the crew to board Dragon for their return flight home. 11:15 a.m. Central Time, 17:15 GMT hatch closure. In about 30 minutes from now, we'll be closing Dragon's hatch. Toma and Aki suited up prior to ingressing the Dragon. Once inside the vehicle, after hatch operation, Shane and Megan will don their SpaceX spacesuits, which will be worn during all of the dynamic phases of flight. All the same leak checks on the spacecraft would occur before the crew would make their way into their seats to strap in for undocking. Concurrent with Dragon hatch, APES hatch closure. Once Dragon's hatch is closed, Mark Vande Hei will affix a docking target to the outside of the APES hatch and then close it, creating a space between Dragon and the station known as the vestibule. He'll then make his way out of the pressurized mating adapter and close the zenith hatch on node 2. Around 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 17:40 GMT, we'll have the vestibule depressurization. Once hatches are closed, a ground command will be sent to open valves on Dragon to begin depressurizing the vestibule, essentially venting the air inside and bringing it down close to vacuum. They'll pause at approximately 5 psi for a few minutes to allow temperatures inside the vestibule to stabilize before finishing the depress. Around 12:50 p.m. Central Time, 18:50 GMT, go-no-go for undocking. Teams here in Mission Control Houston and in Hawthorne do a final joint go-no-go poll for undocking. We're looking for undock around 1:05 p.m. Central Time, 19:05 GMT. An undocking command will then be sent, followed by a few minutes for the umbilicals that connects power and data between the two spacecrafts to detach, for 12 hooks holding Dragon in place to retract, and then 2 quick firings of Dragon's thrusters will initiate separation, and undocking will be complete. After undocking and before embarking on the journey home, we are looking for the crew to do what's called a fly-around maneuver. Crew Dragon will make a full loop around the station for about an hour and a half for the crew to photograph the laboratory's exterior. This is a general survey around the station to see areas that can't be regularly seen by external cameras and the robotic arm. NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei will be watching the undocking and the departure from the cupola, but the prime departure monitoring falls on Shane Kimbrough and Megan McArthur. Mission controls in Houston and in Hawthorne will back them up. And as you've heard already several times this morning, their Dragon flight is intended to be autonomous, but the crew on board has the ability to take control and maneuver Dragon during departure if necessary. On the station side, we're still looking good. Solar arrays are locked in place. We have good communication links, and the attitude will remain on U.S. thrusters control until the time of undocking, when we'll switch to use control moment gyros only. We're tracking no issues for an on-time departure. As we enter final ingress, I'll throw it back to Gary and Kate in Hawthorne.
Megan, have you the same? Great. Megan, I'm showing stale data on display 1.
Copy, stale data.
All right, thank you, Shaniqua. And we are hearing some of the communications checks and getting fantastic views on board the International Space Station. Right now, what you're looking at is a camera that's positioned inside the Node 2, that's the forward module, the Harmony module, and it's pointed straight up towards the space-facing side of the International Space Station up to PMA 3, pressurized mating adapter 3, now getting views inside the draft. Once inside, they'll have a number of tasks inside the capsule, including getting internal cameras configured and uncovered, activating the Dragon cabin fan and associated air filters, doing any quick cleaning of their touchscreen displays, and if necessary, and then, of course, donning their suits. You can see 2 of them in the suits, and there's 2 more, the mission specialists, to get donned. And they'll be wearing that through the dynamic phases of the trip home. That includes undocking and departure, and then, of course, deorbit burn through splashdown.
There is also a chance for them to go through their final checks on Dragon's control systems before they close the hatch and depart from station. That includes a lot of really small details like checking the lights in the cabin and on their control panels, configuring their seats and their footrests, removing any temporary covers on items like the windows prior to departure, and of course giving the Dragon hatch a thorough inspection, making sure that there's no FOD or foreign object debris there on the hatch. Mentioned before, just like cleaning up.
Another comm check. All right, as they're making their way through those comm checks, we may hear those. Here we go.
With you, Megan, on 2.
I got you loud and clear.
Fantastic. So that's pilot Megan McArthur. When we get the views from the Dragon capsule, you'll see her, that camera being behind the pilot and commander. She'll be on the right side, and she's just doing a series of comm checks. Of course, the mission specialists are still out of their suits. They have to ingress their suits, or don their suits to get ready for undocking just about 2 hours from now. Again, I was talking about the So yeah, they'll be donning their suits, and we'll have some a lot of time while the vestibule in between the Dragon and the space station is pressurizing. Right now they are equalized in pressure and the hatches are open. We're just minutes away, about 15 minutes away from closing that Dragon hatch. From there we'll wrap up our coverage and take a short break while we wait for the vestibule to pressurize in between the station and the Dragon will come back up to do undocking. But I was mentioning the crew handover. There is 3 crew members that are going to remain on board. Mark Vande Hei is the NASA astronaut. We have Station Commander Anton Shkaplerov and Pyotr Dubrov, both from Roscosmos, that will remain on board. This is coming from the delay of the Crew 3 launch, which is scheduled just a couple of days from now, no earlier than November 10th. So right now we're in an indirect handover, and this is it's completely fine. It just all you're missing out on is the opportunity for the crew to just show the new crew, the arriving crew, Crew 3, around the International Space Station, get familiarization on where things are, including the emergency equipment. But we have Mark Vande Hei on board, who is able to do that.
Yeah, and of course weather, especially around Florida, super tricky. So unfortunately, while it would be preferable to do a direct handover, really got to do what's best for both crews. And in this case, that involves returning the crew back home prior to Crew 3 lifting off. So like we mentioned before, weather has been in constant consideration over the last couple of days with constantly changing variables around the coast of Florida, both on the Gulf Coast as well as the Atlantic, watching things like wind speeds as well as wave height. So we're really excited that as of right now, we are going to be bringing everybody home from Crew 2 today. So super exciting.
That's right. And it's going to be an exciting journey. We have, of course, the undocking, and it's about 8.5 hours until they come home. About an hour and a half of that is dedicated to something called a fly-around. This is a new capability for Endeavour that was actually, we talked about about during the launch. But really what's going to happen is Endeavour is going to undock from the space-facing side of the Harmony module, and it'll back out to waypoint 1, which is about 200, 220 meters away. It'll hold there for about a minute, just make sure everything is lined up.
SpaceX Endeavour on the big loop Dragon cabin config for departure is complete.
SpaceX copies. Cabin configuration for departure is complete.
Fantastic. Cabin configuration for departure is complete. They are just flying through their procedures. This is fantastic. Once they actually do undock, about 2 hours from now, 11:05 a.m. Pacific, they will back up. Here's a fantastic graphic. Back up to about the keep-out sphere, which is about 180 to 220. It's going to keep within that 40 or so meter range, and it'll essentially fly around the International Space Station, going to the from the zenith or the top facing to the aft or the back, and then just make one complete loop from 12 o'clock to 12 o'clock around the International Space Station. The whole time, the Dragon's nose cone will be open, and they have a window at the very front. Well, the crew will be taking pictures right out the window. They'll make a full loop. That'll take about an hour and a half before they do 2 departure burns that will send them outside the keep-out sphere and the approach ellipsoid and begin the journey home. It'll only be a couple of hours there, and we'll provide continuous coverage as they do those departure burns. There's also a departure phase burn that allows them to shift the phasing from essentially co-elliptic with the International Space Station, or pretty much right underneath, to the phasing that allows them to line up with the primary landing zone, and that is, of course, Pensacola, Florida for today. The deorbit burn is going to be a hefty one, a 16.5-minute burn. They'll fire those. Once they do that, they are committed to land in Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah, so super exciting day. Like Gary said, we're going to be bringing live coverage throughout all of it. So it's going to be a long one, but we're excited to bring the crew home today. Like we mentioned before, they have been doing lots of checkouts for their departure, including suit checkouts and checking out the actuators. Oh, there we have a live view inside Crew Dragon. We can see them. You can see, I love this view because you can actually see what they're seeing on their display screens. Yeah. Obviously a map of the world there showing position location, and we can, on the either side is also an indicator showing where the Crew Dragon thrusters will actually be firing from once those are actually happening.
The maneuvers of Dragon itself are pretty much automatic. They're going to be pretty much hands-off, particularly through the fly-around. The fly-around, they do have the ability to do some manual thruster maneuvers, but the manual piloting capability for the fly-around maneuver will not be possible. So it's really up to the Dragon and its computers to make that full loop. And again, it's really just an hour and a half long.
Go for the LIO steps.
And Endeavour SpaceX, we can give you a go for step 3.1. You are go to complete LIO configuration, IMV teardown, and hatch closure per procedure 2.103. And reminder, we are going to be using LIO cartridge 2.
Copy LIO cartridge 2, and all the rest you said. Thanks a bunch.
All right, continuing to configure that Dragon for its departure. For the past 6 months, Dragon has been relying on the ECLSS, or environmental control systems, of the International Space Station. Hatches have pretty much been open, and they have access to it, and they've been able to circulate some air through the pressurized mating adapter. But now the Dragon is departing, and it has to rely on its own systems. And of course, the LIO canisters, the lithium hydroxide, those have the very, very important environmental control capability of scrubbing carbon dioxide from the cabin of the Dragon.
Yeah. One thing I want to point out while we have this shot, you can see there in the center where that circle is, so that is the hatch for the nose cone. That's actually the window that they'll be taking photos from. So while that hatch is currently open, we can, looks like we got some waves there. You can actually see the window itself where the crew will be taking photos from during the fly-around procedure, as Gary mentioned before.
There are a couple of positions that they can that the crew themselves can be in. It'll be up to, you can see the window itself is pretty small, and they'll have a handheld DSLR camera to be able to take photos. And it's completely up to their comfort level on what position they decide to be in. They're in space, so they don't really need to worry about up or down. So you can see them in essentially the same orientation that they are in now, just essentially putting their feet towards the where the cargo is and heading out that way. They also have the ability, if they desire, to flip completely upside down and hang their feet on the seats themselves. It might provide a better angle. Who knows? This will be the first fly around for Dragon.
SpaceX for display Alpha.
Go ahead.
Hey Shane, we're going to go ahead and have you cycle the power to display Alpha. We are still investigating potential causes on the ground, but we'd like to start with this step.
Okay, and that's just turning the display off and on the touchscreen. Is that it, or is there something bigger than that?
We're going to actually power cycle it using the display power button in the control panel.
Copy that. Some work.
And we're seeing that procedure happen real time now. A simple power cycle is what you and I do at home whenever our laptop is not working. We turn it off and on again. A very simple fix, but they'll analyze to make sure that display is working for them.
For the power cycle.
Yeah, it's cranking back up now. I'll let you know what you see.
On the left, you're getting a view from inside Mission Control Hawthorne. That's the core position, essentially the same as the Capcom position in Mission Control Houston. The voice from Mission Control Hawthorne up to the crew inside Dragon. Behind the displays, you can see Thomas Pesquet, mission specialist. He'll be flanking Shane Kimbrough and Megan McArthur. Him and Akihiko Hoshide, both the mission specialist for the Crew 2 mission.
On display Alpha.
SpaceX copies, still stale data on display Alpha. We are going to continue looking at this on the ground, and I'll have more words for you shortly.
Never copies.
What you're hearing is the communications from the core here in Mission Control Hawthorne up to the Endeavour crew. Just getting Dragon configured. It's going to be about 2 hours from now until they physically separate or undock from the International Space Station's Node 2 Harmony port on the zenith or space-facing side. Getting some views of the Earth now. They'll be able to see a lot of that during their journey. Again, about over the course of 8.5 hours, they'll see a few sunrises and sunsets. So we'll see what happens during the fly-around maneuver, fly-around. Again, we'll take about an hour and a half. We have a lot coming up. We're just about 5 minutes away from the scheduled hatch closure period.
And Endeavour LIO changeout 1709.
Copy, LIO changeout at 1709.
And they're changing out those lithium hydroxide canisters, making sure they have fresh canisters able to scrub carbon dioxide for the journey home. So that will start about 5 minutes from now when they close the hatches. It'll take some time until they actually physically undock from the International Space Station, because there are about 3 hatches that separate the International Space Station crew from the Dragon crew. The first hatch that they'll close, we're seeing it in the background when we got that over-the-shoulder view from inside Dragon, but that was the forward hatch of the Dragon. That is the Dragon hatch. On the other side of that is something called the A-Pass hatch. That's essentially the This is about where Mark Vande Hei is right now. He's pretty much facing it. It's the hatch on the station side in between, which is called the vestibule. That's the part that'll be depressurized down to vacuum before they actually physically separate. Mark Vande Hei's important job right now.
Putting hatch closure in work.
There you go. Hatch closure is just moments away.
SpaceX copies. Hatch closure in work.
Love to hear that.
And again, that'll be the first hatch, Dragon hatch. Once that's closed, we'll wrap up our coverage and allow the crew some time to close the remaining hatches. The A-pass being another station hatch that creates the vestibule that'll be depressurized. The part that you see Mark Vande Hei in right now, that won't be depressurized. That's the pressurized mating adapter. But on towards the screen a little bit is the Node 2 hatch, Node 2 Zenith or space-facing hatch. That's the third hatch. That'll be closed. From there, Mark Vande Hei will move over to the cupola, and it'll be his job to monitor Dragon's departure as well as the fly-around maneuver, and he'll remain in that position until they exit the approach ellipsoid. There's two imaginary circles around the International Space Station. One of them is the keep-out sphere. That's about what they'll hover for the fly-around maneuver, about 180 to 220 meters, or roughly that 40-meter stretch, and just really circle around the International Space Station. And then about a kilometer away,
closed, PPRV ISO valve is open.
Awesome.
SpaceX copies. Hatch closed, and PPRV ISO valve is in the expected position.
All right, so good news there, hearing that the hatch has been closed. On your screen now, a live view of Dragon. The first time we're seeing it this morning. The Crew-2 crew there is on station. They're now inside Dragon. Crew Dragon that you see on your screen there, that is Dragon Endeavour, as you hear them call out during these communications back and forth from station to ground. So super exciting milestone we've been waiting for the last few minutes.
Very exciting. So now that Dragon's hatch is closed, Shane Kimbrough and Megan McArthur will finish configuring the Dragon cabin, and of course they already have their suits donned. Akihiko Hoshide and Thomas Pesquet will put on their suits and get in their seats ready for undocking 2 hours from now.
Yeah, no, I love these suits. The suit's primary function is to protect the crew in the event of a cabin depressurization. If that were to occur, the suit would inflate to provide a habitable environment long enough for the crew to return home.
MS1 and MS2 are getting their suits on.
All right, so call out there that Aki and Thomas
SpaceX copies. MS1, MS2 getting suited.
Are both suiting up. The flame-resistant materials on the outer layer of the suit would also protect the crew in the unlikely event of a fire.
So again, the first hatch is closed, the Dragon hatch. In a few minutes, the A-pass hatch on the station side will be closed. A-pass is an acronym that stands for Androgynous Peripheral Attachment System, so you can see why we use the acronym. It's an integral part of the docking system. But before closing it, Vande Hei, again, you saw him attaching a docking target that'll be used to fine-tune the alignment for an approaching spacecraft, not something required for undock, but would obviously need to be there for the next spacecraft docking to this port, which in this case will be CRS-24, the SpaceX cargo craft.
Now, once both the Dragon and A-pass hatches have been closed, depressurization of the vestibule will begin. The vestibule, as Gary mentioned before, is the area between Dragon and the station's docking port that will be exposed to the vacuum of space following undocking. It's been filled with air that originally came from the station's atmosphere and will be brought down to vacuum for undocking. If this wasn't done, breaking the seal between Dragon and the station would result in a fairly propulsive burst of air.
So again, we have the A-pass hatch closed coming up, and then while we're off air, the vestibule will depressurize. That's at about 9:40 a.m. Pacific. It'll take some time once they actually bring it down to vacuum. They pause at about 5 psi to do a leak check. That's expected about 10:40 a.m. Pacific, and then of course they'll configure the Dragon for both fly around and for undocking. We'll be back to provide some coverage right before they do the final go, no-go for undocking, and then Again, the undocking sequence starts at about 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific. It takes about 5 minutes once that sequence starts to undo the hooks, and then there's a couple burns that'll happen to actually physically separate.
For awareness, we are going to clear the inactive onboard alert from the display alpha power cycle.
Okay, thank you.
All right, they're continuing to work that display, making sure it's ready to undock 2 hours from now. Again, that physical separation is 11:05 a.m. Pacific. Looks like Mark Vandehei is taking some photos. There is that window, the same window that the crew will use to take photos of the International Space Station during the fly around, sending some final photos and final goodbyes to the crew there.
It is a pretty small window that they have to look out, as we saw earlier, while the crew was ingressing. So I'm sure that the waves through the window are these little mini waves. But like we said before, pilot Megan McArthur and Commander Shane Kimbrough are both suited up and in their seats. Mission specialists Akihiko Hoshide and Thomas Pesquet are now donning their suits as well, or putting their suits on, and they will be preparing to get in their seats and buckle up. After that, of course, prior to departure, there's going to be some suit leak checks, and that's when we basically pressurize the suits to make sure that all of the zippers and all the fasteners are in place so that the suit can hold pressure, which is, like we said before, in the unlikely event of an emergency, the suit would act like a mini environment to keep the crew safe.
Very important during the dynamic phases of the flight, and that includes the undocking. But again, the Dragon hatch is closed. So now that Dragon hatch is closed, the crew is preparing to depart, and we're going to take a short break before we get ready for undocking to allow all of that vestibule depressurization, all the hatches to be closed, and we'll come back. Our live coverage will pick back up at 10:45 a.m. Pacific, about 15 minutes before the undock command is sent to the Dragon and it gets ready to physically separate from the station.
Yeah. Once we undock, we will stay live with you the entire time until Dragon splashes down off the coast of Florida later today, which is on target for today, Monday, November 8th, at 7:33 p.m. Pacific, or 3:33 GMT. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon as Crew 2 gets ready to leave the International Space Station.
guess one of the reasons we got here today was because of a gentleman named Galileo a long time ago who made a rather significant discovery about falling objects in gravity fields. And we thought that where would be a better place to confirm his findings than on the moon. And so we thought we'd try it here for you. The feather happens to be appropriately a falcon feather.
Today, a crew of 2 Americans, 1 European, and 1 Japanese astronaut will set off on a 6-month science mission to the world's only orbiting laboratory.
At 5:49 this morning Eastern Time, NASA astronauts Shane Kimbrough, Megan McArthur, European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Akihiko Hoshide will lift off from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center as part of the agency's Commercial Crew program. This crew will relieve the 4 Crew-1 astronauts who have been living and working on station since November. This will be the first time that SpaceX reuses both a first stage and a Crew Dragon capsule. This booster supported the Crew-1 mission, and the capsule, Dragon Endeavour, flew astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley to the space station in last year's history-making Demo 2 test flight. There we have our first look inside the suit-up room at the Neil Armstrong O&C building. We can see the astronauts have gotten into their suits and are now working with SpaceX suit technicians and the closeout team, SpaceX suit closeouts for doing checks on the umbilicals for, looks like they're getting ready to get into their chairs.
This is such a historic room that anyone who walks in it, whether you're an astronaut or not, you just feel like you're catapulted in time to a period where this all began.
And there's a view of Megan McArthur being helped by the suit technicians. She happens to be the wife of Bob Behnken, and she's going to be flying in the same spacecraft in the same seat as her husband in the pilot seat. But of course, she's got her own custom-made suit on.
Yep, all of these suits were designed in-house at SpaceX. We took safety, comfort, and style all into account. That's our commander, Shane Kimbrough, and he's basically sitting in a mock-up of the chair that he will be seated in inside Crew Dragon. So while they're seated inside Crew Dragon, they actually have an umbilical plugged into their suit that flows cool air through the suit to keep them cool and comfy, as well as communications umbilicals and power. So it's really important to make sure that we do these fit-ups here so that there really aren't any surprises once we get into Dragon capsule out on the pad.
And the helmets that they're wearing are also custom printed using 3D printing technology. So that's a really exciting technological advancement since the shuttle days. In the room shot we saw just a minute ago, and there's Megan McArthur getting helped into her gloves in her spacesuit. But we saw, if we could take the wide shot of that room, we saw another astronaut. There it was in the foreground, number 38. That's Jessica Meir. She is a member of the pad closeout team. So we'll see her here in the suit up room, and she'll also be headed to the white room a little later to provide crew support. And here they come, the Crew 2 astronauts taking their first steps outside before their journey to space.
I love this moment. They're now going to have the opportunity to wave goodbye from a safe distance. The distance is normal protocol for spaceflight. This is not a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This would be in place even if we didn't have that situation going on. But I love this moment. It's a wonderful opportunity to see the astronauts get some final farewells from their friends and family members.
And we've got Shane and Megan to the right of your screen, Thomas and Aki to the left.
There's Shane's wife.
Shane and his wife posing for a socially distanced photo.
Yes.
And it looks like Bob Behnken is there in a blue polo with the son of he and Megan McArthur. Yeah, there's a better shot of Bob, Megan, and their son. What an experience as their son to do this twice.
Get to see dad and mom go to space.
He's going to think this is normal the way every all kids experience.
And you can see on the license plate of that Tesla, recycle. You can't see it from this shot, but the other two Teslas in this convoy have reduce and reuse.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So
the first one is
pretty cool.
reduce, the second one is reuse, and this one is recycle.
ONC departure on schedule.
So there's the convoy there on your screen. They just passed behind us just moments ago on their way to pad 39A. Now, if you're wondering what the crew is listening to in the first car with Shane and Megan, I'm not sure which one they're listening to this instant, but they had selections like Learn to Fly by the Foo Fighters, a personal favorite of mine, Crazy Train, Ozzy Osbourne, Enter Sandman, Metallica. I was listening to that one on my way in today. City of Blinding Lights, U2. And in Aki and Thomas' car, Drops of Jupiter. That is a classic. Paradise City by Guns N' Roses. And, of course, Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins.
Yeah, little Top Gun action. I love it. And Tracy, this is the same pad, of course, that you launched from years ago.
Yes, very fond memories of it on my flight. So we got out of the Astrovan. The pilot on our flight on STS-118, Charlie Hobaugh, who we called Scorch, paused and looked up at the stack, and he stopped my crewmate, fellow rookie, Barbara Morgan, and I to pause and take a look at this mammoth spacecraft we were about to fly on, because he said this is going to be the last time you see this view. And I'll never forget that moment. It was very meaningful to me. I cherish it. But Barbara and I realized we got to hurry up. We don't want to miss our first launch. And so we scooted on, and he stayed there pausing to look at it. And I'll always remember that.
So there we can see Shane and Megan have made their way up the tower. They're now climbing the stairs to the level where the crew arm is located.
And we can see the astronauts inside the crew access arm. That walkway. Here are Commander Shane Kimbrough and pilot Megan McArthur. Making their way up behind them are ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet and JAXA astronaut Akihiko Hoshide. And we'll be seeing them make their way up. There they are, coming up the steps. And they'll be stopping to use the phone. Shane and Megan already had the opportunity to do that. That phone is up where you see the person in the black suit. That looks like Jessica Meir, number 38, part of the closeout team at the pad. And this is a shot inside the white room. Astronaut Shane Kimbrough to the left of your screen, and to the right you can see the side hatch of the Crew Dragon Endeavour is open in preparation for the next milestone, which will be crew ingress in just a few minutes.
And we got some really cool views of the second two astronauts walking through the crew arm. making their way to the Dragon capsule. And to help protect against debris, the crew has covers on their boots as well as on their umbilical port on their suits that need to be removed before they can ingress. And once the FOD check was complete for the first two astronauts, Commander Shane Kimbrough ingressed first, followed by Megan. And then next up, we will have Aki and Thomas, who just made it to the white room that you can see on your left-hand screen. We got a cool view looking from outside of the Dragon capsule in through the hatchway. And some fist bumps there from the suit techs to the astronauts.
It's an exciting day for everyone, really. The anticipation, I can't even imagine. You want to, just seeing the pilots and the commanders from previous missions accessing the panel, wanting to get through their checklists. You know they're really soaking in this moment, but at the same time, they are thinking about those next steps. What do I have to do to prepare to make sure we're ready to launch on time today?
Exactly. They must be so excited, but this is their job at the moment, right? They're actually...
SpaceX Endeavour, we're in section 1.3, ready for comm checks.
SpaceX copies. Stand by for umbilical comm check.
And you can see on your screen that seat rotation has now begun. They are rotating from upright to the recline launch position. And this will give Shane Kimbrough and Megan McArthur access to those display panels right above them. And it's very slow and steady, but this is a pretty cool view that we have here on our screen.
An amazing view, really.
You can see how much cargo space we have under those seats as well.
Dragon SpaceX, seats are in the launch position.
Copy, great news.
As you can see, we are preparing for the closure of the side hatch. The closeout team there in the black SpaceX flight suits that you see have performed a final FOD check, and they've gotten the final okay from the crew inside the capsule to confirm that they are indeed ready to go to space today. As you can see, the side hatch has just been closed. This is a little bit more complicated than it may seem. So it's this initial closure, and then there will be actual mechanical closure using a torque wrench, which we should see here momentarily. Might be, yeah, we can see that happening now. And then afterward, we will inflate the seal that's around the side hatch in order to do that leak check. We'll inflate the seal, apply a pressure basically, and make sure that the hatch is able to hold that designated pressure for a couple of minutes.
Crew access arm retraction started.
There you see a live view of the crew access arm retracting away from Crew Dragon in preparation for launch. Shortly thereafter, we should hear the call out that the launch escape system is armed, and from there, we'll hear that Falcon 9 prop load has started, which is one of my favorite milestones of the launch countdown.
There's a shot of the space station. There it is.
Yeah. Everybody wave.
They're waving down at us. I think they're watching right now. So.
They are. You know they are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
We see you. So that's super cool.
Dragon SpaceX, confirmed crew displays are configured for launch.
Displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX copies. Shane, Megan, Aki, Thomas. We're thrilled to have crew on board Endeavour once again, and truly honored to have you all at the helm. It's been a pleasure training alongside you ahead of this historic launch. We wish you a great mission, good luck, and enjoy the ride.
Thank you, Chad, Christian, Frank, and all the teams who got our crew and vehicle ready for this mission. I want to say a special thank you to our families and friends. We're incredibly grateful for your support and sacrifice during our training and our upcoming flight. Our crew is flying astronauts from NASA, ESA, and JAXA, which hasn't happened in over 20 years. We're excited to represent our nations, agencies, and all of humanity. Off the Earth, for the Earth, Endeavour is ready to go.
All right, some celebratory handshakes from inside the Crew Dragon. That was the voice of the Corps, Chad Healy, here in Mission Control Hawthorne.
Dragon has transitioned to terminal count and is on internal power.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete. Gas closeout has started. Expect loud venting.
Dragon is also in auto idle. The flight computers on Dragon, maintaining their calculations, standing by, waiting for the T0 mark. 1 minute, 15 seconds until launch. The 1 minute mark, Dragon will transition to countdown and the flight termination system will arm. The computers on Falcon 9 will be talking to the computers on Dragon and can issue an abort if necessary.
FTS is armed. Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling.
Dragon is in countdown.
All right, 50 seconds to go. Everything is ready for an on-time launch today.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
Copy, go for launch.
Ground teams are ready and the crew inside Dragon is ready. 30 seconds to go until launch.
Seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff. Godspeed, Endeavour and Crew 2.
Copy, 1 Alpha.
Endeavour launches once again. 4 astronauts from 3 countries on Crew 2, now making their way to the one and only International Space Station. Vehicle is pitching downrange. 9 Merlin engines on the first stage, providing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Hearing good calls on first stage performance so far.
We are T plus 30 seconds into the second rotational crew mission on board Dragon and Falcon 9. Falcon 9 will be throttling down the 9 Merlin engines shortly here in preparation for maximum dynamic pressure. And there's that call out for the throttle down. Maximum dynamic pressure, or max Q, is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees throughout ascent. So throttling down does help us pass. Throttling down helps us pass through this period, which should be coming here shortly.
Max Q.
There's that call out that we have just passed through max Q.
Stage 1 throttle up.
And
1 Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
All right, 1 Bravo is the second abort mode on the first stage. The first stage continues to fire for 2 minutes, 35 seconds. 1.5 minutes into today's flight. Falcon 9 now traveling at more than 1,500 miles an hour.
MVAC engine chill started.
All right, the engine chill for the second stage single Merlin engine has started. About 30 more seconds of the first stage firing to bring our 4 astronauts into orbit.
Now from here, coming up in about 20-some seconds, we're going to have 3 major milestones. We'll have shutdown of the 9 Merlin engines. We're beginning to throttle them down. We will then get stage separation.
1 throttle down.
And then we will get ignition of the second stage engine to propel Dragon and the Falcon 9 second stage into orbit.
2
Nico.
Alpha.
Copy, 2 Alpha.
Confirmed.
Acquisition of signal 1.
In the ignition.
And we have ignition of the second stage. You see the green flash of that T-TEB fluid. The expansion nozzle on the second stage Merlin vacuum glowing that bright red that we like to see. Good performance on the second stage so far.
And on the left side of your screen, we saw the exhaust of the second stage engine streaming past the first stage as the grid fins are coming out. We also briefly had a view of the lights of Central Florida in the background. Currently, the first stage is continuing to coast up to apogee. It's unpowered. It'll reach a peak height and then begin to descend back down toward the Earth's atmosphere, where it will light 3 engines to slow down in preparation for what will be a landing burn on the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. You can see the grid fins are deployed right now. The first stage
Dragon,
pulsing.
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Entry burn complete. We're down below 35 kilometers, continuing to look good on the first stage, heading to the Atlantic Ocean for a landing on the drone ship.
While second stage is less than a minute away from cutoff.
Stage 2 in terminal guidance.
Shannon.
Copy, Shannon.
Shannon called out at the back end of the stage 2, a few seconds until cutoff.
MVAC shutdown.
Dragon SpaceX launch escape system disarmed.
Launch escape system disarmed. Copy.
Dragon SpaceX nominal orbit insertion.
Copy. Nominal orbital insertion.
All right, the Falcon 9 second stage has done its job, delivering our 4 crew into orbit.
You hear the applause here in Hawthorne. We're waiting to get a video signal back from the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. And the view from the onboard camera, we saw it just briefly. It looks like first stage on the drone ship. Getting views of the Dragon trunk. So the first stage is on the drone ship, successfully landed. And more importantly, second stage is in a nominal orbit with the Dragon spacecraft getting ready for some important events coming up, Gary.
That's right. About 2 more minutes. The Dragon and the second stage of the Falcon 9 will be in a coast phase. It'll take that long until the spacecraft separates from the Falcon 9. Of course, both now in a nominal orbit. It's great to see some of the views of the Earth as it passes by over the North Atlantic Ocean. All right, we're getting shots of the crew in orbit. I'm looking for that 0G indicator. Can't seem to see it in this shot, but we have a minute to go until we have spacecraft separation. Dragon traveling at nearly 17,000 miles per hour at an altitude of 124 miles. Again, the 4-person crew of Endeavour is in orbit right now. Less than 30 seconds until we have spacecraft separation. 10 seconds to spacecraft separation. We should hear words from the core here in Mission Control Hawthorne once we have successful separation. Dragon separation confirmed.
Dragon, SpaceX. Dragon team wishes you a great rest of your trip. Say hi to the crew of Dragon who's waiting for us and let them know your rocket is home safe. Thanks for flying our first flight proven crewed Falcon 9. Tierra side, Crew 2.
Thank you very much. We're great. It's glad to be back in space for all of us, and we'll send our regards to Crew 1 when we get there. Thanks.
Absolutely stunning views from both inside the cabin, seeing the excitement of our 4-person crew inside Endeavour, and watching Endeavour drift away from the camera on the second stage as the Earth passes by on an orbital sunrise.
Hello, everyone. Welcome on board Endeavour. We're a couple hours into the flight, making our second lap around the Earth. Right now, we're over kind of eastern South Africa, so it's really great looking out our windows, and we get to see some pretty cool stuff up here. But we had an incredible launch. Hopefully, you guys got to watch it this morning. Right as the sun was rising, we took off. We chased the sun pretty quickly and caught it up just a few minutes after we took off. That was pretty special to see the sunlight coming in shortly after liftoff. We're going to show you around the vehicle real quick, and hope you guys really enjoy it. And I'll pass it over to our pilot, Megan McArthur.
Hello, Earth. It's great to be back in space again after a few years for me. The ascent was incredible. The ride was really smooth. We couldn't have asked for anything better. There may have been some hooting and giggling up here while all that was going on. We hope you enjoyed the show as well. I'm kind of relearning. I'm like a baby bird here, relearning how to move around in microgravity. It feels really good, but it feels a little bit weird too. Fortunately, it's a nice small space that I can relearn to move around together. I'm going to hand it over to Thomas, who's going to show you around a little bit of what I up here.
Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. I'm Thomas, Mission Special Hub, your tour guide today in the Crew Dragon Endeavour capsule. Thanks for flying with us. Welcome on board. Our commander, Shane Kimbrough, welcome your pilot, Megan McArthur, also, and next will be Akihiko Hoshide. So as you see, it's pretty roomy. The ride up was fantastic. This is the hatch behind this. Of space, harsh temperature, bad environment, bad stuff. Inside, very comfy. We feel very well protected. Everything is great. If you get closer, you can get a view out the window, and I'll try to give you that if the cable is long enough. And this is what we get to see. Coming up on Madagascar, but it's cloudy. I don't think you get a good view. But we'll try to get pictures, and I can show you maybe the cargo area down there, because this vehicle is bringing people up to space, but also cargo. And if you follow me, and I'm going to flip and try not to make everybody sick, down there is where we have a little cargo. There's freezers. This is our suits, nicely packed. This is some more cargo. We have our water landing equipment. And this is all nice and tidy. And behind those walls are a lot of other equipment that we need, clothes, food, and etc. So with that, now that you're familiar with the capsule, I'm going to hand you over to Akihiko Hoshide, Aki for short, from JAXA, and he's going to give you some more information.
Hello, Earthlings. One thing, this capsule looks just like our mock-up simulator in Hawthorne, except you can't do this because we're upside down, and this is actually the hatch that goes to the International Space Station. And once we dock, we're going to open this hatch and get on board and see our friends who are up there right now. Now, we have a 5th crew member, And as you can see, Shane is holding him right now, but he can actually fly. It's a penguin that our boys chose, and his name is Gwyn. Welcome, Gwyn, to space.
That was really cool seeing Gwyn start flying after we hit 0G. Tomorrow, Aki talked about we're going to dock to the International Space Station. It's going to be around 5 a.m. Eastern Time in the U.S. Hope you guys can join us for that, but it's going to be great to get on that forward port on the space station and join our friends there. Crew 1 is on board along with Expedition 65, a couple Russians, and Mark Vandehei. So we're looking forward to joining that crew and having a big time up there with 11 people on board. Megan, any closing words?
And I think we can just show folks kind of what our environment looks like up here, Shane. These are the displays that we use to monitor the spacecraft systems through all the different phases of flight. So we had displays up, of course, during ascent, and then we'll have some ability to monitor the docking sequence as well. All of the burns that will get us closer to the space station. We'll eventually be able to see different kinds of images of the space station on our screens as we get closer. And then, of course, once we contact the space station, we'll monitor the docking system mechanism using these displays as well. So it's pretty neat to see the touch screens and all the different facilities that they have. We can bring up different systems pages while we're working through the different activities. So those are something neat to see. Rather than the old-timey steam gauges, we have these pretty cool touch screens that we can use.
One thing I'll add before we sign off is Thomas noticed a little while ago, after we're getting out of our suits, he looked out the window when he saw our second stage pretty much flying in formation with us just underneath us, and that was very special. So we all rushed to the windows to look at that for a little while. So that was pretty cool. So we're enjoying our first day on orbit. So we got a lot more to go, and we're looking forward to it. Hope you guys enjoyed the little tour of our capsule. And we'll be in a much bigger environment tomorrow once we dock with the International Space Station. Have a great day. Take care. So long from Endeavour.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those views with us and giving us a glimpse into life on board Dragon and letting us meet Gwyn. Thank you again.
There is orange soil. Well, don't move it till I see it. Hey, it is! I can see it from here. It's orange. Wait a minute, let me put my visor up. It's still orange. Sure it is. Crazy. Orange. I've got to dig a trench, Houston.
And if you take a look, we are getting our first views of the evening back into Crew Dragon Endeavour. And this view is of our commander, Shane Kimbrough, and our pilot, Megan McArthur.
Yeah, and it's been a while since we've seen inside of Dragon, so I'm super excited and sort of giddy to be able to see the crew inside as they prepare for that fifth and final burn.
We're about less than a minute away from that final co-elliptic burn. They are not in their suits. They don't have to be in their suits for this portion of the mission. They will get in their suits again about 30 minutes prior to the approach initiation burn. So that's coming up in the next few hours. But for now, they don't have to be suited or seated for this final co-elliptic burn.
And we're getting confirmation that the final co-elliptic burn is in progress. Again, that's going to last about 30 seconds, and that is the fifth and final burn. It will bring Dragon's orbit to a constant 2.5 kilometers below the station to prepare for its approach and autonomous docking.
Dragon SpaceX burn was nominal.
Copy, nominal burn.
All right, what you're seeing right now is a camera view from the International Space Station. It's zoomed in pretty close, so it looks a little bit blurry, but that is the Crew Dragon Endeavour, spotted from the cameras of the International Space Station. The space station itself flying 265 statute miles now over Russia, about to head over the northern border of Kazakhstan. And we're getting some clearer images from Crew Dragon as it continues to make its approach. There they are.
There is the crew back in their suits, in their seats. Looks like they're also harnessed in. Essentially their seat belts are a 5-point harness. And looks like they're all strapped in and ready for this approach to the International Space Station.
Wow, an incredible view. This is from the International Space Station looking at the Dragon station, and Dragon are flying over the Philippines right now, about to head over Australia in an orbital daytime.
That is a pretty cool view. And again, we have that internal view of Crew Dragon. All 4 crew members are strapped into their seats. They are preparing for the final maneuvers to make their way to the International Space Station. And this is a view from the International Space Station looking at Dragon. As that dot in the center of the screen with the Earth in the background.
Very cool. We'll get to appreciate these views from the cameras on board the station, looking back at the Earth for just a little while longer. We're about to cross over the Terminator line. So the views you're seeing here will start to get just a little bit darker as we pass into an orbital nighttime over the South Pacific Ocean. Meanwhile, again, Crew Dragon is not the only spacecraft in flight right now. It's about to meet up with the International Space Station. We're hearing from the control teams over there that the International Space Station itself has maneuvered to its docking attitude. The station itself undergoing a series of procedures to make sure it is prepared as an orbiting complex to receive the Crew Dragon. All right.
Wow, we've got a very close-up view of the International Space Station from Dragon. And you can see how close we're getting. Again, this is from below the station, meaning between Earth and the station. And now we have some internal views of Crew Dragon.
International Space Station is now 260 statute miles over Panama, close enough to pass over the ground stations over the Cape in Florida, providing some of these incredible views from Dragon. You can see this is almost directly below the International Space Station. We're coming up on the R bar, or essentially directly below. That's waypoint 0, coming up in less than a minute and a half.
SpaceX for awareness, the geo filters did just converge on Dragon Eye, so we do not expect them to drop out.
That's great news, SpaceX. Thanks.
Oh, fantastic views from the International Space Station. You can see very clearly the Terminator line. So that's the line between light and dark now. That's over the North Atlantic Ocean. The International Space Station on a northeasterly course. It will cross over Great Britain when it gets over the Atlantic Ocean, over the pond to Europe. It will first cross over Great Britain.
Now this maneuver from below the station to in front of the docking port is almost complete, just a few minutes away.
Getting great views from all around, from the station side, from the Dragon side. The outline of the station you see on the displays inside Crew Dragon is in line with the position of where Dragon is relative to the International Space Station. It's almost at the docking axis, about 2.5 minutes to go until it converges with waypoint 1.
A really good zoomed in view, and you could almost make out those 4 bulkhead thrusters on the forward portion of the Dragon capsule.
There you go. The Cronus is adjusting the aperture of the station cameras.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Approach 1 and soft capture ring extension will begin shortly. Dragon will continue to waypoint 2 with the additional lighting assessment occurring at 110 meters as previously noted.
That's right. Crew Dragon resilience actually coming into view a little bit clearer now from the cameras aboard Dragon. Docked to the zenith port.
Yeah, that was on the upper portion of the screen.
That's right. Now again, to reiterate, Dragon has passed waypoint 1, 220 meters in front of the station, executed a burn maneuver to go ahead and move in, so we're in approach 1. And it's heading towards waypoint 2. The features of the space station coming into view very clearly.
Yeah, you can see a lot of the detail there, and as you mentioned, the Crew 1 Dragon.
SpaceX station on the big loop. Procedure review complete, ready for docking.
Houston copies.
All right, that was confirmation from Victor Glover aboard the International Space Station. From the space station side, he is go for docking. The soft capture ring itself is fully extended. We're 115 meters in closing.
Looking at your screen, the port that we are going to be docking with is directly in the middle of the screen, that circular area on the International Space Station.
And Dragon SpaceX soft capture ring extension is complete. Additionally, we did beat the sunlight for the Dragon Eye filters, so we are not going to command a hold.
Ever copies off.
All right, so that's great news. We passed the 110-meter checkpoint that the ground operators were referencing, making sure the sun wasn't interfering with the optical sensors, the Dragon Eye, that are part of the guidance and navigation and control system aboard Dragon. We passed that check mark. We're good to go. We beat the sun there. So we're now inside 80 meters and closing. Dragon will pause at 20 meters.
that's designated as waypoint 2 to conduct a go, no-go poll for the readiness on both the Dragon side and the International Space Station side, making sure everyone is good for docking. Some of the features there, you can see a lot of the visiting vehicles on board station. At the bottom is a Russian Soyuz vehicle that delivered crew to the International Space Station. Just in front of that, or actually above that, is the Crew Dragon Resilience docked to the Zenith port. Once Crew Dragon Endeavour arrives, there will be 2 Crew Dragons attached to the space station.
In this view from Crew Dragon looking at the International Space Station, it looks like it's this very slow and steady movement, but in reality, they're moving at 17,500 miles per hour.
The rendezvous operations are absolutely incredible. You can sort of see the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo craft as well, some of the Ultraflex solar arrays coming into view a little bit clearly.
And you can see that Crew 1 Dragon vehicle on the top of your screen. Once Crew 2 docks to the International Space Station, we will have 2 Crew Dragons docked at the same time for the first time.
SpaceX Endeavour on the big loop, visors down.
SpaceX copies. Visors are down. We may enter into a hold at waypoint 2. We are still awaiting ground go for final approach.
Endeavour copies.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Ground is now go for final approach. Upon confirmation of crew readiness for final approach, we will enable the approach. Please confirm crew readiness, and a reminder, once Dragon is inside the crew hands-off point, retreat and breakout are no longer permitted.
Crew is ready for final approach.
All right, we did get confirmation. Approach 2 has been initiated. So Dragon now making its way inside the 20-meter hold point at about 18 meters and closing. Final approach of Endeavour to dock with the International Space Station has started. Docking expected in about 3.5 minutes from now.
You can see on your screen as Crew Dragon slowly approaches towards that port for docking.
That's right, we're 13 meters and closing, making a slow and methodical approach to the docking port. That's on the forward end of the International Space Station, that international docking adapter where Crew Dragon Endeavour has docked once before.
Copy Copy, 10 meters.
What that call out was Crew Dragon is just 10 meters away from the International Space Station as it continues its approach for docking. Again, docking will occur in 2 phases. There will be a soft capture followed by a hard capture, and what that hard capture means is 12 physical hooks will connect the Dragon to the space station.
Great views. Dragon just 6 meters away as the station and Dragon fly in tandem 263 statute miles over the South Indian Ocean in the background.
5 meters.
We're 5 meters and closing.
Copy, 5 meters.
Really start to see the detail on Dragon there as it is closing in on docking.
That's right, 2.5 meters, 30 seconds. Crew hands off point was called out.
Dragon, SpaceX on the big loop, soft capture confirmed.
Copy, soft capture confirmed.
Great news with that call out. That soft capture is confirmed.
That's right, that soft capture time, 2:08 a.m. Pacific time, 4:08 a.m. Eastern. The station and Dragon connected 264 statute miles over the South Indian Ocean. Endeavour connected to International Space Station for the 2nd time.
And there are still a few steps to complete before Dragon is securely attached.
Dragon, SpaceX on the big loop, soft capture ring retraction in progress.
That's good. The ring retraction is happening. Ring retraction happening as expected. And after the ring retracts, 12 hooks will latch, 6 at a time, to perform a hard capture, and will officially mate Dragon to the International Space Station.
Got this really awesome view of Dragon as it is connected to the port, currently making progress on hard capture.
Endeavour arriving.
Got some confirmation that the crew is go for ingress, and you can see Aki is the first to ingress onto the International Space Station.
And Gwyn.
And Gwyn.
Followed by Thomas Pesquet from the European Space Agency.
Lots of hugs and smiles right now.
Pilot Megan McArthur of Crew 2 is next, being welcomed by the Expedition 65 crew members, and Shane Kimbrough bringing up the rear. The 11-person crew of Expedition 65 now together inside Node 2 of the International Space Station.
Though we can't even hear audio in there, you could really feel the excitement just by the looks on their faces, the hugs that they're giving. Now they're getting ready for this official welcome ceremony. You can see them getting into position.
Let the Tetris game of fitting 11 crew members into a single frame begin.
Right. 12. Gwen.
Oh, that's right.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. We are ready for the event.
Mr. Jersick, please call Station for a voice check.
Station, this is Steve Jersick. How do you hear me?
Steve, we have you loud and clear. Welcome to the International Space Station.
Hey, man, it is awesome to see the 11 of you on station. It's incredible. Congratulations, Crew 2 on an amazing launch yesterday. Coming to Kennedy Space Center and watching launches never gets old, and seeing the pre-dawn launch yesterday was amazing. So congratulations. I also want to congratulate the NASA and SpaceX team for our third commercial crew mission in less than a year. A lot of firsts on this mission, including the first crew handover of commercial crew vehicle, and it was really cool during docking to see one Dragon docked on the Zenith port and the other Dragon coming in for docking. So it was amazing. April has been an amazing month and a really busy month for ISS, with Mark, Pieter, and Oleg launching to ISS. Kate and her Russian colleagues coming back. Crew 2 there, and now preparing for Crew 1 to come back. And I am really excited for all the research, technology development that is going to be able to be enabled on station with these regular crew rotations and having 4 crew up there consistently. It's not only important for advancing research technology development to benefit folks here on Earth, but also to prepare for Artemis and our return to the moon, and eventually preparing for human missions to Mars. So it's just an incredibly exciting time for ISS. You know, Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas, we thank Tomas. We thank you for everything you do for the agency, the country, and the world, and we look forward to an amazing expedition. Crew 1, you guys have had an amazing 6 months. Mike, Victor, Shannon, and Suichi, I've followed what you've done to upgrade the station and all the research and technology you've been able to accomplish. And just want to congratulate you on an amazing expedition. And we look forward to your return next week. So again, I'm just really excited for this new era for ISS and all that you all have and will be able to accomplish. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. It is very exciting to have Crew 2 with us today, and so I'm not going to take up any time here. I'm just going to hand it over so we can get their thoughts.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Steve. And on behalf of Crew 2, we are just so excited to be here. I'm very excited to be here.
In some ways, it's been a long journey. In other ways, it's been a pretty quick one-year assignment flow. So it's taken a tremendous amount of work from a lot of different teams to get us here. We, of course, have our excellent training team at Johnson Space Center, also an outstanding training team from Hawthorne, and the entire ISS program and commercial crew program working together to get us here, of course, as well as along with our international partners. We're just really excited to be here and be part of this historic mission with the 2 Dragons on board. First reuse of a capsule, first reuse of a booster. It's just a tremendous achievement on behalf of our partner SpaceX. So I want to congratulate and thank them. And we're so excited to be here. We're ready to get to work. There's a lot of great science that I know we're going to be doing, and we're just excited to learn and get started. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jerzyk. We now welcome Associate Administrator Kathy Leaders to provide remarks. Ms. Leaders, please call station for a voice check.
Station, hi, this is Kathy Leaders. Do you hear me?
Kathy, we have you loud and clear.
Wow, you know, I just don't, I think I could see Endeavour approaching station maybe one more time, you know, near and dear to my heart to see that going on. And, you know, I think both Steve and Megan mentioned how amazing it was to see resilience there on the station. The folks, Crew 1 folks and the other parts of the ISS team, Mark, and you guys had the best view, but it was really cool seeing it from here on Earth. Like Steve talked about, wow, this is, and Megan too, we talk a lot about this being, and exploration being a team sport, and this mission so far has really exemplified that. You know, with our commercial partner, SpaceX, with our international partners, and with Thomas and Aki, and obviously Megan, you and Shane, you know, holding up on the NASA side here, and then our commercial crew and ISS teams. Congratulations to all of you. It's just been an amazing, amazing mission, and I know you guys are going to be doing some really great things. I've been here watching the folks here on station waiting for you, and I know you guys will be having a lot of fun together over this direct handover period, and with all of you on board, it's going to be a lot of fun for you, and getting ready for Crew 1 to come home. So I just wanted to really, from the bottom of my heart, say thank you. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to the whole team, the international, the commercial, you folks there on the space station now today safely, and looking forward to, like Steve said, seeing your accomplishments over the next 6 months. Thanks again.
Thank you, Kathy. Really appreciate your support.
Thank you, Ms. Leaders. We now welcome JAXA President Dr. Yamakawa Hiroshi. Dr. Yamakawa, please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Yamakawa Hiroshi from Tsukuba. How do you hear me?
Dr. Yamakawa, we hear loud and clear.
Well, thank you, Aki. Well, congratulations to all. I watched yesterday's launch on TV and really feel relieved by your safe arrival to the station now. In this tough situation around the world, I believe you have brought courage and hope for all of us. It is a great pleasure not only for me but also for Japan that 2 Japanese astronauts, Aki and Soichi, have boarded the operational spacecraft of the Crew Dragon twice in a row. This represents the many years of close cooperation on the International Space Station. I'm so happy to see both of you with big smiles today. And I understand that Aki advocates teamwork for this long-term mission, which comes from your experience in rugby football. The ISS is a symbol of international cooperation around the world, and we are looking forward to seeing you work as a team, build a scrum with all of the crew members from NASA, ESA, and Russia on board, and keep scoring tries to maximize outcome during your mission. Soichi, we wish you a safe return to the Earth. And Aki, good luck and enjoy your stay in space. 野口さん、地球で待ってます。星出さん、これから半年間頑張ってください。Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be part of this team. We have a 11-person scrum right here, and with 4 countries representing. It's really an honor and privilege to fly on Crew-2 Dragon and get here. Thank you to all the people that worked very, very hard to prepare us and the vehicle. We got here safely, and now it's time to work here on board the International Space Station. And we look forward to working with everyone around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yamakawa. We now welcome ESA Director General Joseph Ashbacher. Dr. Ashbacher, please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Joseph Ashbacher. How do you hear me?
Hey, Joseph, we hear you loud and clear. Welcome to the space station.
Thank you, Thomas. This is really great to see you, that you and your crewmates have arrived safely on the space station. Greetings to all of you, 11 of you at the station, from all of us at ESA. It is really a fantastic effort to see you all so nicely grouped together in the group photo. I think the station needs expansion, seeing what that you're all crowding together so nicely. On ESA, Thomas, we are all very, very proud of you and what you're doing for space, for Europe, for the Space Agency, also for France. You're extremely popular, as you know. We're all very proud of you, but of course we're also very proud of all the other colleagues which are next to you, because astronauts are so fascinating and they give so much inspiration to all of us. So this was the first launch of an ESA astronaut on a Crew Dragon. It was spectacular, and together with Philippe Baptiste, the newly elected CNES president, we have followed very closely from the suits up all the way to the orbital journey to the station, and now just recently, just a few minutes ago, the hatch opening, and this was really so exciting and really fantastic. It has been, I think, a long day for all of you, but you all look extremely in good shape and in good spirits. You're all smiling. This is really fantastic to see down here from Earth. But ESA is really very happy to see your assignment, Thomas, towards the end of the mission as the ISS commander. And I really would like to take this opportunity to thank the partners of the space station for this honor to give to Thomas, which certainly is a sign and a recognition of his quality and also his personal quality, but of course engineering and technical qualities to be the commander of the station, and also recognition for ESA as being a strong partner and supporter of the space station all the way. So I know that you have a long and very intense training period behind you, and you're all set to go. There's a lot ahead of you. Hundreds of experiments are waiting, and all of you will be kept extremely busy, but we all look forward to see the results of these experiments. So Thomas, really very best wishes from all of us. Good luck and bonne chance.
Hey, thanks, Joseph. It's really unbelievable to be here on Space Station. Space Station has changed quite a bit since last time I was here. I've never seen so many astronauts on board. I've never seen so many different spacecrafts on board, and I think it's a tribute to how strong the program is going. I want to echo what Megan has said. It took a lot of effort from all kinds of people, you know, from the highest manager to all kinds of support persons to bring us here. So we want to thank all of them. And I want to say a few words about international cooperation. You said a lot, but it's been 20 years since it's been 20 years. Actually, Shane's line, I learned it from Shane. It's 20 years since JAXA and ESA and NASA and Russian astronaut have been together in space. So it's actually pretty historic what's happening today. We can't wait to start our work on the space station. We can't wait to see what's ahead on the adventure for us. In those 5 months, we're so happy to see our friends. We're going to have to say goodbye to them soon. We wish we could keep them a little bit longer, but not too long as well, because 11 people is a lot on space station. But yeah, it's good to be here. Really, we're impatient, and it's going to be unbelievable. I want to say a few words in French. Je voudrais surtout remercier tous les gens qui ont travaillé sur cette mission en français, et puis un petit mot pour les familles et les amis qui sont déplacés jusqu'à Cap Canaveral. Ça n'a pas été un voyage facile. En tout cas, ça m'a vraiment fait chaud au cœur de les avoir avec moi. Donc je voulais les saluer un peu particulièrement. Voilà. Merci à tous.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Administrator Jurcik, Associate Administrator Leaders, Dr. Yamakawa and Dr. Oshbacher for your participation in the Crew 2 welcome ceremony. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
Go and throttle up. Discovery, roger. Go for deploy. Thanks, Karen, and to everybody in the shuttle program. The crew is go for launch. Roger. Nice to be in orbit. We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. It's Monday, November 8th, here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. You're looking at a live view of the Dragon Endeavour spacecraft as we await its departure from the International Space Station on its way back to planet Earth. We expect Endeavour to push away from the space station at 11:05 a.m. Pacific or 19:05 GMT with our Crew 2 astronauts, including NASA astronauts Shane Kimbrough and Megan McArthur, JAXA astronaut Akihiko Hoshide, and ESA astronaut Thomas Pesquet. If you joined us earlier, you'll know that the crew is suited up and the Dragon and station hatches are sealed in preparation for departure. My name is Kate Tice, and I'm a senior certification engineer here at SpaceX. It's a live production morning for us here on this Monday morning, so you might hear some noise as we broadcast, but in any case, I'm very excited to bring you live coverage of Crew Dragon completing its second trip to space with people on board as part of NASA's first official long-duration mission for its commercial crew program. Joining me today from NASA Communications is Gary Jordan.
Hey, super good to be here, Kate. Once Dragon departs the station, the crew's flight home is expected to last just a little more than 8 hours. About an hour and a half of that journey will be dedicated to a fly-around maneuver where the Crew 2 astronauts will make a full loop around the station to take photographs of the outside of the orbiting lab. Upon completion of the fly-around, Dragon will use its Draco engines to thrust away from the station in a series of carefully choreographed maneuvers, or 4 departure burns, to increase the distance between the spacecraft and the space station. Dragon will also execute a phasing burn to lower its orbit and line the spacecraft up with its landing location.
Next on its trip home is deorbit, entry, and landing, which covers all operations after the final departure maneuver. That includes trunk separation, closure of the nose cone, a deorbit burn, deployment of drogue and main parachutes, and finally, of course, splashdown off the Florida coast, at which point our teams will recover Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas. Dragon is targeted to splash down off the coast of Pensacola, Florida, in the Gulf of Mexico tonight at 7:33 p.m. Pacific, 10:33 p.m. Eastern, followed by the crew getting picked up at sea by one of SpaceX's recovery vessels.
Today on board the space station is the Expedition 66 crew, led by Roscosmos cosmonaut Anton Shkaplerov, who just took over as station commander from Thomas Pesquet of ESA, now on board the Crew Dragon Endeavour. As a reminder, just like its approach to the International Space Station, Dragon's departure and deorbit, including the fly-around, is designed to be fully autonomous, requiring no action from the crew on board. NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei will be watching the undocking and departure from the cupola, but the prime departure monitoring role falls on Shane Kimbrough and Megan McArthur from inside the Dragon. Mission controls in Houston and in Hawthorne will back them up. So now let's go over to Shaniqua Vereen at the Johnson Space Center to talk a little bit about how the station crew has been preparing to send this crew home and what we can expect to hear from Dragon as it departs from the station. Shaniqua.
Thanks, Gary. It's been a busy week during our indirect handover. Over the last several days, the astronauts worked to pack Dragon full of cargo for the return journey home. Along with our crew, Dragon will return more than 240 kilograms or 530 pounds of cargo back to Earth. The cargo includes some samples for continuing human research, some hardware, and some other items. All of this cargo will get offloaded after we get the crew out following splashdown, and the scientific samples will be sent to researchers for final analysis. The crew also took some time to get their SpaceX suits unpacked and ready for the journey, with Aki and Thomas suiting up inside the station prior to making their way into Dragon. Since getting the hatches closed, Shane Kimbrough and Megan McArthur also suited up, with all 4 astronauts now in their seats and standing by for undocking. We've got a final go-no-go poll coming up in a few minutes where the joint SpaceX and NASA teams make their final call for Dragon to depart station. This is one of many checkpoints in the return that will continue all the way up until just before the deorbit burn, giving mission managers multiple chances to assess the weather at the splashdown zones, making sure everything is lining up before the Dragon departs. So we'll stand by for that final go, no go poll, but for now, everything continuing to look good for an on-time departure. With that, I'll throw it back over to you, Kate and Gary in Hawthorne.
Thanks, Shaniqua. So separation is set for approximately 11:05 a.m. Pacific, 19:05 GMT, just a few minutes from now. At the moment, Dragon is in its final configuration before undocking, and we are waiting for mission operators to conduct their go, no-go poll on whether to move forward with the docking procedure.
Now, a note for on its trip home, just like during its approach to the International Space Station, Dragon's departure and deorbit is designed to be fully autonomous, requiring no action from the crew on board.
Once the docking sequence is complete, Dragon will use its Draco engines to thrust away from the station in a series of carefully choreographed maneuvers, or 4 departure burns, and that'll increase the distance between the spacecraft and the space station. From there, a phasing burn will place Dragon on a trajectory back to Earth.
On its trip home is deorbit, entry and landing, which covers all operations after the final departure maneuver. That includes trunk separation, closure of the nose cone, a deorbit burn, deployment of the drogue and main parachutes, and then finally, splashdown off the Florida coast, at which point our teams will recover the Crew 2 astronauts inside Crew Dragon from the water.
Yeah, so we are expecting the call for that go, no-go here in the next few minutes or so. So as we mentioned before, weather has been a watch.
SpaceX final configurations for undock are complete and nominal. Ground is go for undocking with the targeted undock sequence start time of 1900 Zulu. Please confirm visors are down and crew readiness for undock and departure at the planned time of 1900 Zulu.
Endeavour copies. Go for undock at 1900 Zulu. Visors are down.
Copy all. Thank you, Megan.
Station Houston on 2 for Mark. Perform steps 2 through end of 1.602. Dragon departure monitoring.
Copy 2 through end, and the ISS crew is ready for Dragon undocking.
All right, and with that,
Houston copies.
With that, we just heard the confirmation that Dragon is go for undock. All of the teams supporting are ready. We're now waiting for that final undocking sequence to actually begin. So once that happens, right at 11 o'clock Pacific, it will take about 5 minutes for Dragon to physically separate from the International Space Station, which has been its home for the last 6 months.
This is the first step in the automatic undocking sequence. The first step is to release for those umbilicals to retract. Those umbilicals are what's connecting Dragon systems to the space station, transferring power, telemetry, and commands between the 2 vehicles throughout Dragon's stay. Once that's complete, Dragon will unlatch itself from the space station by releasing the 12 hard capture hooks in 2 separate phases. All of that will take roughly 4.5 minutes, and then Dragon will be ready to depart from station and begin to push itself further and further away using those Draco thrusters.
Dragon's initial departure from the station is a little different from other docked vehicles like the Soyuz that rely on springs to push them away from the docking port. Dragon will actually execute 2 very short thruster firings to undock using a combination of the 12 Draco engines that are around the base of the capsule. You can actually see some of them in this view. With the first breaking any stiction between the Dragon and the docking port, and the second slowly backing the spacecraft away. We're expecting the call for the undocking sequence to begin in the next couple of minutes or so, maybe 5 minutes if we start right on time. Since we've last been with you, a lot has happened. I think we went off air maybe about an hour and a half ago, right when the Dragon hatch was closed. In that hour and a half, Mark Van High on the station side closed the A-Pass hatch, or the hatch that's adjacent to that Dragon hatch, creating a vestibule in between the two hatches. He also closed the hatch to the pressurized mating adapter 3, which is on the nadir, or the zenith side, space-facing side of No. 2. With all of that, he was able to execute the depressurization between the station and the Dragon, the vestibule, that middle part in between, putting it down to vacuum. You can see them all suited up from this camera view inside the Dragon. They also performed a series of leak checks. We had 4 good leak checks. And of course, just before we started this broadcast, the vestibule leak check, which is very important, making sure that that vestibule is down to vacuum and there's no leaks. That was performed, and we had a good leak check on there. Handing over to the SpaceX side to do a residual leak check. Now just really counting down to execute this undocking sequence. Again, a 5-minute sequence here to start in about 4 minutes.
Like we said before, those umbilicals are going to disconnect first. That's what is connecting power and telemetry and communication to station. And once those umbilicals are released, we'll then begin to unlatch the hooks that are physically connecting Dragon to station. Once again, all 4 Crew 2 astronauts are seated in their seats there inside Dragon Endeavour. There we see a shot with pilot Megan McArthur there on the right-hand side, and Commander Shane Kimbrough on the left-hand side.
They even have a view of their own Dragon on the middle screen. That is fantastic. The Dragon itself is on the space-facing side of the International Space Station. When it undocks, it will perform those 2 undocking burns that we were talking about. The next burn that it'll perform is called an impulsive retreat burn. That burn sets it up in a position essentially at waypoint 1. Which is at about 220 meters. It'll do a short hold for about a minute before executing a fly-around maneuver. And it will be in this fly-around position for about an hour and a half, going essentially around the station fully, starting at the 12 o'clock position and then going full clockwise around until you hit the other 12 o'clock position. It's going to hit the aft side first. So we'll see the aft and then the nadir, or the underside of the International Space Station. That'll happen what's scheduled to be in an orbital nighttime. So it'll be the lights that are on the outside of the International Space Station that are illuminating it as the crew inside Dragon take some photographs of the exterior of the station. We haven't done this since a Soyuz fly-around in 2018 when we did a fly-around survey, and the crew were able to take digital photographs of the outside. It's really helpful for the analysis of the exterior and some of the integrity. There's a lot of cameras on the outside of the space station. In fact, you're seeing one of them now providing a fantastic view of Dragon, but they can't see everything. So this survey is going to provide fill in the gaps, really, between what the station cameras can provide and whatever the robotic arm is able to provide as it surveys the outside. This will provide some of the latest data of what the status is of the outside of the International Space Station.
Now, for those of you that might be unfamiliar with Crew Dragon and how it works, there on your screen, we're actually looking at Crew Dragon, and to us, it looks upside down. To the folks in space, there is no right side up or upside down. So while it looks to us like the crew might be sitting upside down, they can't feel it as they are in microgravity. But the part that is connected to the space station is the pressurized section, which you see there. The part that we saw in the previous view that was the dark cylinder underneath the pressurized section, that is the unpressurized section, also known as the trunk. That portion of Dragon will be jettisoned prior to re-entry. By doing so, we will expose the heat shield and allow for the heat shield to protect the capsule upon re-entry. So just a little map of Dragon, if you will, for folks that might be unfamiliar. Looks like we lost our view there, but we'll bring it back as soon as we can.
and is very important, all of those different parts of the Dragon. Now, as we're undocking, we do have word that we will not have KU or a video downlink of the Dragon during undocking. So there's a handover of satellites in between that time. So we'll be able to confirm verbally and with the teams supporting in Mission Control Houston and Mission Control Hawthorne that the sequence has begun and that the Dragon has physically separated.
SpaceX undock sequence has been commanded.
All right, so right on time. The undocking sequence has been commanded. This sets an automatic series of events to unlatch all 12 hooks that are holding Dragon in place. You heard about the umbilical retraction, and of course, we'll confirm physical separation.
Endeavour, SpaceX, umbilicals are demated.
There we go. Okay, so to take us through this sequence, now that we are in the undocking sequence, scheduled for an on-timed undocking at 11:05, let's send it over to Shaniqua Vereen over at Mission Control in Houston.
Thanks, Gary. And we just heard confirmation that the umbilical has retracted. We are currently waiting for all those hooks to open, and that's 2 sets of 6, so 12 total to unhook from the Dragon before we are
Endeavour, SpaceX on
called.
Dragon to ground. Repeating calls for TDRS. The umbilicals are demated, and the undock sequence has been commanded. Group 1 hooks are driving.
Endeavour copies on the big loop.
And that was confirmation that umbilicals have retracted, and we are waiting for all the hooks to current hooks are driving, and we are waiting for all of them to unhook before we have that full confirmation of separation. You'll hear from the Corps and Hawthorne as
Commentator.
Endeavour,
We're about
SpaceX first
halfway
set of
there.
hooks are open.
and that was confirmation from the Corps to the crew. We're about halfway there. Hooks of that first set are done. We're driving the second set now. Hooks are still driving.
All hooks are open and
we have confirmation of separation.
Endeavour copies.
Dragon has started to push itself away from the station. And with that, Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas have completed their journey aboard the International Space Station.
Station on 2, Dragon separation visually confirmed.
Houston copies and kickers.
Confirmed physical separation at 1:05 p.m. Central Time as the station was flying 259 statute miles. As the station and Dragon was... That was confirmed physical separation at 1:05 p.m. Central Time as the station was flying 259 statute miles off the coast of Chile. 2 good undocking burns and a nominal impulsive retreat burn. Next will be a brief hold at waypoint 1 before the fly-around sequence is executed. We'll be monitoring Crew Dragon throughout the departure sequence as it makes its way from the International Space Station. Godspeed to Shane, Megan, Aki, and Thomas. To take you through the rest of the departure sequence, we'll send you back over to Hawthorne.
Dragon eyes have converged, and Dragon is navigating on Dragon Eye 2. We will time out of impulsive retreat 1 point and into go to 1.
Endeavour copies.
Dragon SpaceX, we see the onboard warnings for Dragon Eye 1. No correction is required. Dragon is navigating on Dragon Eye 2.
Copy, good Dragon Eye 2.
And we're following along as the Crew Dragon Endeavour is backing away from the International Space Station.
We're going to go to waypoint. MSs are doffing suits.
SpaceX copies in go to 1, and the MSs are doffing suits. We will transition cameras to external only if desired.
And SpaceX not required.
SpaceX copies.
Station on 2, the ISS thrusters are enabled.
Houston copies.
So a lot happening there. The Dragon is about 100 meters away from the International Space Station at this point. The crew inside have gotten the go to start doffing their suits, now past the dynamic phase of undocking where the suits are required. So they'll start doffing as they head out to waypoint 1, which is about another 100 meters away as they slowly make their way out. They're going to waypoint 1, which is about 200 meters away, right at the edge of the keep-out sphere. And they'll hold for about a minute before starting the fly-around maneuver. Starting at this very top or zenith position towards the space-facing side. See them backing up. They're about at this position, actually, right now, about halfway. Then they'll execute a 50-second fly-around burn 1. This will take them from the zenith or the space-facing side to the aft or the back of the station and cruise for a bit until they hit the aft portion.
It's expected that during this part of the flight will be in an orbital nighttime. So right about these two burns, fly around burns 1 and burn 2, we should be getting some views of the International Space Station, maybe even of the Dragon, but they will be a little bit on the darker side. Then, of course, the next two burns, burn 3 and burn 4, will be in the daylight, and the whole maneuver itself will take about an hour and a half. You can see the position of the Dragon, the very top portion of the Dragon with the nose cone face down towards the International Space Station at all times. This allows for the crew inside with a perfect window view looking down at the International Space Station to take digital photographs the entire way around. It's a photographic survey opportunity of the exterior of the International Space Station, allowing the crew to visualize some of the areas of the space station that can't normally be seen by some of the external cameras on board. Not too long after it makes this full loop over the course of an hour and a half, there are two departure burns. Departure burn 0, that gets them outside of the keep out sphere, which they will have been hugging for about an hour and a half, and then depart burn 1, which sends them right outside the approach ellipsoid. At that time, we are outside of joint operations between the International Space Station flight control teams and the Dragon teams here in Mission Control Hawthorne. They'll be taking control of Dragon's journey for the remainder of its flight down to splash down off the coast of Pensacola, Florida, targeting an on-time splashdown at 7:33 p.m. Pacific time tonight.
Yeah, so we've had an exciting morning so far. The call-outs that we heard just a couple minutes ago was an indication that everything is looking good and that both Aki and Thomas can doff or take off their spacesuit. This will allow them to have a little better mobility about the cabin in order to take those photos. Like Gary mentioned, these photos will help basically fill in the blanks that the onboard cameras currently have on station as
SpaceX Endeavour MS-1 is out of the suit, ready to support fly around.
SpaceX copies. MS-1 is ready for fly around on Dragon to ground.
All right, so there's that call indicating that Thomas has removed his suit and he's ready to take some photos. He'll be doing that as the nose cone is still currently open. And so there's actually a very small circular window at the top of the forward hatch. And he's going to be taking those photos of the station using that port, essentially. And it is tight quarters, so obviously being able to have a little better mobility will certainly be useful to him here coming up.
So again, they're past that dynamic phase, which is why they're getting out of their suits, and they'll remain there. The Dragon itself will fly autonomously. The crew do have the ability to execute small manual correction burns if necessary, but for the most part, Dragon will take that flight around the International Space Station automatically. The flight computers themselves were programmed just ahead of undocking, getting ready for that essentially fly-around sequence. For the fly-around sequence to begin, it's a different set of burns to get them out to that hold point and then eventually around the station. We are getting fantastic views from the Dragon Eye, some of the Dragon cameras that are on the forward end of Dragon pointing down, and that position will be held really throughout this entire fly-around flight. We're a little more than halfway there, about 130 meters at this point. Again, we're getting to about 180 to somewhere between 180 to 220 until we get to that waypoint 1 hold point. We will not stay there for very long. It's only about a minute. And then if everything looks good, which the flight control team are trying to determine right now if they're good to go to proceed, they'll execute that fly around burn pretty much immediately.
Yeah, so that shot that we just had inside the cabin, you could actually see Thomas there just underneath Megan and Shane taking these photos as we had indicated. Hopefully we'll get that view back momentarily. But
Endeavour,
this view...
SpaceX, no response required, but we are going to clear the onboard Dragon Eye 1 and Dragon Eye-like sensor cross-check alerts from your board. They are no longer active.
Yeah, so this is a live view from Dragon, and there's that shot inside the cabin. pilot Megan McArthur on the right-hand side, Commander Shane Kimbrough on the left-hand side, and that's Thomas Pesquet, basically the designated professional photographer of this mission. If you've been following along on his Twitter account, there have been absolute golden photos that he's really captured all along this mission. And I'm excited to see, what he might be putting his skills to here as he continues to survey the station during this fly around.
Interestingly enough, it looks like the photographic survey is beginning now, even before the fly around, now that they have, they're only about 140 meters away at this point, but you can see an absolutely gorgeous view of the space-facing side of the International Space Station. Really good to take pictures now because we're getting this view while we're in an orbital daytime. It won't be long until we have a sunset here as we make that first burn maneuver to go from the very top or the zenith space-facing side. We're going to first go towards the aft or back of the space station, towards the Russian segment. That'll be the first part of this journey around the space station to take this photographic survey.
Now, if you're looking at the screen and wondering what that red thing is floating near Thomas' head, and there's a blue one on the left-hand side, those are his earpieces. Those are basically part of the uniform. That's what allows him to hear communications during the mission, not necessarily at this point in time, but it looks kind of silly to see them floating there, so I just wanted to point those out for awareness.
Right below the International Space Station is the South Atlantic Ocean. We just passed the southern tip of South America, and we're now heading on a northeasterly course. The Terminator line that separates light from dark is right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean right now, so we're expecting sunset in about 15 minutes. So Thomas Pesquet taking pictures of the space-facing side of the entire International Space Station while he can. He's got about 15 minutes of daylight left.
Live shot there of Mission Control Center here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, just to the side of us. Like I mentioned before, it is a bustling Monday morning. Here we are a live manufacturing environment, so there is some background noise as we're literally building rockets and spacecraft right behind us. But yeah, that's a shot of our mission control here in Hawthorne.
So you're looking at the control room right now because we are sort of in between the video coverage that we're getting from the International Space Station. You see some of the views are absolutely gorgeous. There is a data link between the space station and the Dragon that provides high bandwidth communications. But for the most part, a lot of that video from the Dragon side will be when we go over ground stations. From the space station side, we use TDRS, or Tracking and Data Relay Satellites, that are in geosynchronous orbit about 23,000 miles from Earth. To give you some perspective, the Dragon crew and the International Space Station crew is about 250 miles, so quite a bit. But they provide that video coverage, the video downlink that we're seeing from the outside of the station. This is probably the longest period of a handover between the satellites that we'll see throughout the flyover maneuver. There's a couple of dips that we may see from video as they're making that their way around, and we'll just see what we get as we make our way around. We have that video coverage from the station camera, so we may be able to see the station side looking out at, there we go, we're already getting some of that, fantastic. So you can see with the station cameras overexposed, that aperture nice and wide, we can actually see some of the Draco engines firing those thrusters to stabilize Dragon as it makes its retreat out to about 220 meters, now at about 160. Looking straight down at the International Space Station. Of course, they're looking straight up. Again, we're about 10 minutes away from an orbital sunset. You can see the views a little bit even dark at this point. It might be because of the overexposure, just to see some of those Draco engines firing. And high definition views as well, fantastic. Hopefully we get a lot of these, Kate, as we make our way around the station. Again, we're in some of the longer handover periods now, but we may see it. The cameras themselves should be getting some good views of the Dragon as it makes its way around. Some of the views from Dragon looking down at the International Space Station that we were seeing towards very shortly after undocking. We'll maybe get some of those as well. So this will be a very fun hour and a half.
Yeah, I want to point out real quick while we still have this view that the tiny light there in the center of the dark circle, that is the window in which Thomas is utilizing to take photos during the fly around. So right now, Thomas is looking back at us as we're looking at him. Once again, you can see that nose cone is open. It will remain open for the duration of the fly around. And of course, prior to re-entry, it'll close once we are completely done utilizing the Draco thrusters located there at the forward hatch.
You can sort of see them too, the outline of the four forward bulkhead Dracos. Those will be used for a lot of the more important maneuvers. I think the most important of which is the deorbit burn. Very, very important maneuver that is essentially committing Dragon to re-entering the Earth's atmosphere and splashing down. Right now, we're still tracking weather, and we will continue to do so over the next 8 hours as we make our way down closer towards that splashdown time, 7:33 p.m. Pacific, 10:33 p.m. Eastern Standard. But those four forward bulkhead Dracos will fire for 16.5 minutes, super critical time, and that will put the Dragon in a position to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere.
This shot is also great because not only can we see the forward hatch, so that's the hatch that's utilized to get in and out of Crew Dragon while it's on station, but we can also slightly see the side hatch, which is on the left-hand side of the vehicle. It's a square shape, which doesn't look like a square from this angle. However, it's that panel there on the left-hand side of the vehicle. That, of course, is the hatch in which the crew uses to ingress or get on board Dragon on day of launch, and of course it will be the hatch that they use later this evening to egress or exit the vehicle once the crew splashes down and is recovered by the SpaceX recovery team on one of our recovery vessels.
And that'll be open for the first time in 199 days. By the time that they splash down at 10:33 p.m. Eastern Time, they're only about 7 hours shy of making it to that 200-day mark. But it will be 199 by the time they actually open up that hatch. It's been closed the entire time that it's been on station. Very important section of the Dragon, right towards us, where we're looking at from this camera view, towards essentially what is the top of that side hatch. That's where the drogue parachutes are. Shortly after re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, mortars will fire to release those two drogue chutes.
Endeavour SpaceX for fly around.
Go ahead for fly around.
All right, Endeavour, you are go to command ISS fly around once hold 1 is reached. It is a required urgent command as soon as we enter hold 1 to limit prop consumption. So repeating, you are go to command fly around once Dragon enters hold 1.
Endeavour copies go to initiate ISS fly around at hold 1 with no delay.
That is a very critical time. Megan McArthur, the pilot of the Crew-2 mission, by the time they actually get to what they're talking about, hold 1, that's waypoint 1. Right now they're at about 185 meters from the International Space Station. They're heading out to approximately 220. At that point, Dragon will transition to hold mode, or hold 1, where it's holding at that waypoint. To limit the prop consumption, as was mentioned over the Dragon to ground loops, the big loop actually right now, as even the station team is listening in, the station crew, Mark Van de Heij namely, who's monitoring this sequence right now. That will be about a minute that they have from the time that they enter hold 1 to the time that the first fly-around burn is initiated. That burn being the first of 4. It'll be a zenith to aft burn. It's about a 50-second burn that maneuvers the Dragon into a position to essentially cruise down to right behind or at the aft section of the International Space Station. So again, you're seeing, we were getting fantastic views of the Dragon looking right up at it. And Kate, you were perfectly describing that tiny little hole that Thomas is going to be taking photos out of. You can see even after that first burn is executed, those burns will actually keep Dragon in a position where that forward hatch, what we're looking at right now with that bright circle at the very dead center, that's where Thomas Pesquet will be taking some of the digital photographs. That forward hatch will be pointing towards the International Space Station at all times as it makes its way around the International Space Station with, again, all 4 fly-around burns to make that perfect loop all the way around.
Once again, this flyover maneuver is brand new to Crew Dragon. This is the first time that we will be executing it. The maneuver itself is basically a photographic survey of the station. Yeah, so there you can see kind of big picture. Dragon is going to be making one big loop around station, and Thomas Pesquet will be taking photographs through the port window, essentially there on the forward hatch of the station, which will hopefully fill in some gaps that currently exist in terms of the photographs that have taken of station. So even though there are many cameras on station, unfortunately there are certain spots, certain angles that can't be photographed just due to physical location. So Thomas will be taking pictures, and essentially Dragon will be making one big loop around station to perform this photographic survey.
This was a normal, this was a very standard procedure for the shuttle. The shuttle used to undock from the International Space Station, regularly survey the station, providing updates, particularly when it was under construction, right? It was a very dynamic phase. That was more of the assembly phase of the International Space Station. We're in pretty much the third decade. After more than 20 years, we are in it. This is the time of maximum utilization. So there have been a couple of additions recently to the International Space Station, namely commercial modules. I think most recently was the NanoRacks Bishop airlock, which is essentially a way to deploy satellites. It also removes trash. It can also retrieve some ORUs or replacement unit spare parts from the outside with the help of the robotic arm. So there are a couple of new elements, and we'll be able to see that for the very first time after this fly around. The last fly around that happened was on board a Russian Soyuz, where Drew Feustel, NASA astronaut, used a handheld camera to do the exact same thing. As the Soyuz undocked from the International Space Station, it did the same thing, did a photographic survey as it flew around, and so those are from 2018. So this will be brand new, 2021, and we'll get to see some of those new modules, like the NanoRacks airlock module, as well as a couple of other things. The Bartolomeo external platform that's on the European Space Agency side. So this will be very important to see.
So there on your screen, that is once again a live view of Crew Dragon Endeavour departing the International Space Station with the Crew-2 crew on board. And those pulses that you see are actually pulses coming from the Draco thrusters on board Dragon in order for Dragon to hold position and maneuver. Like we said, it's going to be performing this fly-around maneuver. Those Draco thrusters we can see activating in order to hold course.
It looks very bright because the cameras themselves on the International Space Station are right now overexposed. By doing so, it allows us to see some of those Draco maneuvering thrusters. There, it's becoming clearer now. We're in an orbital. We're about to enter into an orbital sunset. So you were getting some glimpses from the Dragon. We just got a second of it. It looked like looking down at the space station, still a little bit illuminated by the sun. That will not last very long. about 2 more minutes is when we're expected to hit that hold 1 point at about 220 meters. We're at about 217 at this point, so we're slowing down, getting ready to get to that hold point. Again, Megan McArthur, the pilot, who from this camera view is on the right.
Initiated fly around.
There we go.
Copy, Endeavour. Fly around is initiated. We are tracking.
So a little bit earlier than expected, but it seems like we did hit that hold point, and it was not long at all before Megan McArthur initiated that burn. Right now we're in a 50-second burn, the first of 4 to fly around the International Space Station.
Dragon, SpaceX on Dragon to ground. We see the onboard alerts for Dragon Eye. Time of flights are still converged.
Say again, you are not readable.
Repeating call. We see the onboard alerts for Dragon Eye 1 and Dragon Eye 2 geometric filters. The time of flight filters are still converged.
And SpaceX, still very difficult to hear. Copy, you see the messages. I believe these are expected in this quadrant. Is that correct?
That's affirmative, Endeavour. The geometric filters were lost, but the time of flight filters are still converged. So Dragon is still in a good configuration for fly around.
Copy, good config for fly around.
Station Houston for Mark. You are go to stand down for monitoring Dragon's fly around.
Copy, thanks much. And to the Dragon crew, I'll be looking for you if I get a chance to see you outside. But very quickly wanted to say thanks to all of you. Thomas, thanks for being such a great guy, an inspiring, famous person from France. Aki, you're a commander who knew exactly when to be serious and when to be funny. Let me just stop talking if I'm talking too long. Jane, thanks for being such a great example of what putting others first looks like. And Megan, thanks for becoming a sister to me up here in space. I'll miss hearing your laughter in adjacent modules.
Hey, Mark, we're really going to miss you. Had such a great time with you. Learned a lot from you, and I know you're going to treat Crew 3 really well, and let us know if we can do anything for you. Take care. Fly safe.
Yeah, get home safely. It's been a great part being. It's been great being part of your team.
Likewise, my friend. Take care of Anton and Piotr for us.
I'll do that right now.
You were hearing NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei, the sole NASA astronaut now on board the International Space Station, relieved of his duties to monitor the retreat of Dragon out to the hold point. Now he can stand down for monitoring the fly around. Some wonderful words from Mark Vande Hei, who got to spend the entire 197 days that the Crew 2 astronauts spent on board the International Space Station. Vande Hei being a crew member that's staying on board for almost a year as part of the Soyuz rotation crew. A shout out to the Crew 3 astronauts who are set to launch just a few days from now, no earlier than November 10th. To make their way to the International Space Station. It'll be Mark Vande Hei's job to brief them on everything that the space station, everything about the space station, where things are, about emergency procedures. So he'll do the handover as Crew 2 is returning home now.
As we mentioned previously, we prefer to do direct handovers from crew to crew, but the weather off a Space Coast and just around Florida in general has been incredibly tricky the last week, really. So the teams at NASA and SpaceX did reviews and jointly made the decision that the best thing to do for both Crew 3 and Crew 2 would to be bring the Crew 2 crew home before launching Crew 3, purely because of weather restrictions. We've been monitoring splashdown conditions on both sides of Florida, including wave height and wind speed, and those are really primary restrictions on allowing the crew to splash down, and it just happens to be that today was our best day to attempt that splashdown.
And before undocking, we did a weather brief, and the Crew 2 astronauts are undocked today because they did a weather brief of the prime landing site, Pensacola, and it looks fantastic. Even with the trajectory, it's about 8.5 hours, even fitting in this fly around maneuver, which they're doing right now. So we just executed a good 50-second burn, the first of 4 to fly around the International Space Station. We're now in a cruise phase between what's called the zenith, or the space-facing side of the International Space Station. We're heading to aft. That's the Russian segment of the International Space Station. We'll be getting some great views the whole way. We're in an orbital nighttime, so we're relying on some of the external floodlights on the outside of the space station to illuminate those views, and Thomas Pesquet has his camera ready, taking some of those surveys. We're getting some views as we're going in and out of that connection from between Dragon and station, but it looks like we have some Dragon views now. You can see a lot of, particularly the habitable volume of the space station is illuminated. We'll be in this position for at least this one, from the zenith or the space facing to the aft or the back, for about 20 minutes. It's about a 20-minute transit to get to that next point, which is essentially right on the V bar, or the velocity bar. That's directly behind the International Space Station. There are no hold points throughout this maneuver, so right at about that time, they'll execute another 50-second burn. That'll do essentially the same thing, maneuver from the aft section or the back to the very underside of the International Space Station. We did hear Mark Vande Hei actually mention that even though he's not in a monitoring phase for watching the fly-around maneuver, he's been relieved of those duties. Right on the Earth-facing side of the International Space Station is a 7-bay window called the cupola. Provides fantastic views of the Earth, and it's used very frequently for capture operations for some of the cargo craft that come to and from the International Space Station, but it'll also provide a very good view of his crewmates who will be flying around the International Space Station at that time on the underside or on the Earth-facing side of the International Space Station. So we'll hopefully get a couple of fantastic shots from Mark Vande Hei taking some of those photos. By about that time, when the Dragon is directly underneath the International Space Station, we should even be in an orbital sunrise. So we should get some sunrise photos as well.
Yeah. The shot that we had a little earlier with that nighttime view and all the exterior lighting of station, something about it so black and white, kind of looked like it could be in a Kubrick film.
Right.
Yeah. As we saw before, oh, right, there it is, actually. We have some shots there inside the Crew Dragon capsule. You could, when we get that back, you might notice that Thomas Pesquet has taken off his spacesuit to allow him to have better mobility while taking some photos. Once again, this fly-around maneuver is essentially a photographic survey of station, and this is super helpful because, as Gary mentioned before, the last time this was performed was 2018, I think you said?
That's right.
And there have been lots of new additions on station since then, so this is a new capability for Crew Dragon. This will be the first time we're executing it today, and yeah, so Thomas Pesquet will be taking photos. They're in night mode inside Crew Dragon.
It's likely to limit the glare from the lit cabin inside the Dragon, likely reflecting off of the single window that Thomas Pesquet is using to take those photographs. We're in an orbital nighttime, right? So the only thing illuminating the outside of the space station is the lights of the space station itself. So limit those glares and get even better photographs. I cannot wait to see these photographs that Thomas is taking.
Yeah, you can kind of think of it as, imagine if you're in a car and, somebody's driving a car in the middle of the night and you're sitting in the passenger seat and you turn the interior cabin lights on and you try to take a picture of something scenic outside, right? You're probably not going to be able to capture that because the interior cabin lights are reflecting off of your window. So you turn the lights off and enable night mode on your camera and take some pictures.
I bet you they do the same thing during crew sleep as well. The Crew 2 astronauts had about a 24-hour transit to the International Space Station. Almost. It was just shy of 24 hours. So as part of that was an 8-hour sleep period. So everybody found a place inside Dragon, either bunking up in the seats, which I think is more common, or just finding a random spot to strap yourself and float, but they get an 8-hour rest period. Not on this flight, because it is a very short transit, and so we're going to be doing this for about an hour and a half, circling around the International Space Station, and then from there, you're really only at about, 6.5 hours, maybe 6 hours, from the time that you execute that first departure burn, which is departure burn 0, to break out of the fly around and then make your way towards splashing down off the coast of Florida.
Yeah. So once again, we have been keeping an eye on weather. We are targeting a splashdown off the coast of Florida near Pensacola, and we're targeting that at 7:33 p.m. Pacific time this evening. So, like Gary said, once we complete the fly-around maneuver, while it will be another 6.5 hours left, big picture, that's actually a pretty quick trip home, and I'm sure that after the 199 days that they have spent in space, they're all excited to get home and see their families.
Absolutely. So they're going to be splashing down off the coast of Florida, and there's going to be recovery teams there. The Go Navigator recovery ship will be stationed out in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll see a lot of that action as we get closer to that period, about 8 hours, maybe a little less than that at this point from now, until we actually splash down off of the coast. We're going to see all the action. It'll be a nighttime splashdown, unfortunately, but we did see a lot of that for Crew 1, and we did get some pretty good views of the fast boats going out and really readying that capsule inside the water to be picked up by the A-frame, which is on the back of the Go Navigator and positioned inside the Dragon nest. Like you said, Kate, from there, the crew themselves are going to be extracted, or they're going to egress the Dragon spacecraft. There are some medical facilities that are on the boat, but what will likely happen is they'll take a helicopter ride out to the coast of Florida, where they'll have different planes stationed ready to take them home. 3 of the crew members, Shane Kimbrough, Megan McArthur, and Akihiko Hoshide, will take a plane out to Houston. They'll undergo a series of additional medical checks and just make sure they're ready to go, and they'll have a chance to see their family. Thomas Pesquet will depart for Europe. So we're in the middle of a fly-around period now, so we should be in this period for, it's a cruise phase between the zenith or the space-facing side until we get to the aft side. We're here for about another 10 minutes. It's about a 20-minute transit from the very top, or the R bar, essentially right in line with the top of the International Space Station, to the aft position. There's going to be no stops along the way. It's a very fluid transit from each of these different periods, but once we get to the V bar, we're essentially right in line with the velocity bar of the International Space Station. You can see it there. It's the point directly to the back or to the aft of the International Space Station. Right there, they'll execute another 50-second burn to enter into another cruise phase. It limits the prop, right? They need to save a lot of that prop for some of the departure burns, and you can see 2 of them are part of this fly around to actually break out from it. But this is essentially where we are right now. In fact, we're about halfway through the maneuver. This position that you're seeing right now in this graphic is pretty much where they are, about halfway between the zenith, or the space-facing most point, and the aft, or the backmost point of the International Space Station. And again, a 50-second maneuver. It's just to limit prop. After these 50-second burns, they enter into a cruise phase. So the next maneuver will be just about another 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more than that, 25 minutes, to get from the aft position to the nadir, or the bottom position. Right about that time, they'll be entering into just about this period where you see the Crew Dragon on this graphic. That will be about where we see an orbital sunrise. So we'll be able to photograph the underside of the space station while it's lit and illuminated by the sun. And about that time, we should see Mark Vande Hei. Well, not see Mark Vande Hei, but it's about that time that Mark Vande Hei from out inside the space station will be taking digital photographs of the Dragon, as the Dragon is taking photographs of the cupola. Maybe we may even get to see Thomas Pesquet take a photo of the cupola maybe seeing Dragon, seeing Mark Vande Hei inside. Another 50-second burn right at the bottom there at the nadir position to get over to the forward end of the International Space Station, all in the daylight. So we should be getting some great views of, at this point, which is the U.S. side, U.S. OS side. We'll be getting to see some of the U.S. modules, some of the commercial modules that I was talking about, as well as the international modules. Right about here, you'll get some great views of the nadir, the underside, as well as part of the forward parts of the Japanese module, the GEM, as well as the Columbus module, which is the European module, each with their own respective external facilities. The Japanese exposed facility has a lot of experiments on the outside, and then we have the commercial module Bartolomeo, a ESA, European Space Agency astronaut, and Airbus partnership, which is another external platform, does a lot of the same things, external payloads. So we'll get to see some of those, which have been installed. Well, the Bartolomeo, at least, has been installed recently.
Endeavour, SpaceX on Dragon to ground for cabin temperature.
Go ahead on Dragon to ground.
We see on the ground that the cabin temperature has been increasing slightly and is at a little elevated level. We're wondering how you're feeling in the cabin and if you'd like us to take any commanding to cool the cabin off.
In SpaceX, our temperature is adequate at this time.
Copy that, Endeavour. Thank you.
All right, no need to adjust the thermostat for the inside of Endeavour. All the crew feeling pretty good. We were seeing Commander Shane Kimbrough and pilot Megan McArthur inside, stationed in their same seats. They were still suited up. We saw Thomas Pesquet doffed or took off his suit fairly quickly after undocking and some of those initial burns, the undocking burn and the impulsive retreat burn, because it's his job to take photos of the outside of the International Space Station. I thought I saw Aki there for a bit.
I think you
with
did.
His suit still on, assisting Thomas Pesquet, but we'll be in this position for quite some time. The whole fly-around maneuver takes about an hour and a half.
Now, for those that might be unfamiliar with how teams in space communicate with those on ground, you have probably noticed by now that there is a beep that precedes communication. This is known as the Quindar tone. If you've watched pretty much any space movie ever, you probably might recognize it. But essentially, that tone rings, and then the destined. So, for example, if I were calling Dragon here from SpaceX, I would say Dragon SpaceX because I am calling Dragon and I am calling from SpaceX. So you basically identify the destination first, as well as the origin of the communication as well.
And then what loop you are calling on.
Yes.
So it's who you want to talk to, who is calling, who is doing the calling, and then what loop you're essentially talking on. For a while, they were on the big loop, right? So the International Space Station could hear them as well, and you heard that term. That's where really every team is integrated. The Dragon teams here in Mission Control Hawthorne, the Dragon crew, Houston Mission Control, which is controlling the International Space Station, as well as the Space Station crew themselves. For once we exit outside of the approach ellipsoid, we'll break that off, and we'll be relying namely on Dragon to ground. So again, we're in the cruise phase between the nadir or the space-facing side and the aft side. We should be here for another maybe 6 minutes or so until we get to the aftmost portion or the very back of the International Space Station. From there, we'll do another 50-second burn to get us from the aft or to the nadir position, which is at the very bottom. And right around that time, we should hopefully be seeing views from the International Space Station or from the Dragon, depending on the ground sites and our coverage there. But we should be seeing an orbital sunrise as well.
Yeah, so there on your screen, a view of Mission Control Center here at SpaceX Hawthorne. This is where ground teams are commanding Dragon when necessary. But for the most part, Dragon is flying itself. This whole process of undocking and deorbiting, this whole journey is intended to be autonomous. Dragon essentially driving itself, which is a super important capability.
Now you're seeing the commander and the pilot. When we do get those views, Shane Kimbrough as commander, Megan McArthur as pilot, they're still in their designated positions, the commander and pilot seats, and they are monitoring every step of the way, right? Even though Dragon is completely controlling itself, they have views of the Dragon Eye camera, which is looking down at the space station. You can see that on the commander's side. They have views of the trajectories. They have views of the Earth. They're looking at all the thrusters. They are checking every step of the way to make sure that the Dragon is healthy. But they also have, of course, the teams here in Mission Control Hawthorne doing the same, even monitoring their cabin temperature, making sure they're at they're very nice and comfortable inside the Dragon.
Yeah, they still have a few hours left to go. I can imagine that working up a sweat at this point, probably not the most comfortable condition. As we saw earlier, Thomas has actually taken off his suit in order to perform the photographic survey during this fly-around maneuver. We did see Aki off to the side, still in his suit, and like Gary just said, both Megan and Shane are still in their suits as well, in their seats.
And they'll be in this position for quite some time. So again, they're going to just remain really in a monitoring position, and with Thomas Pesquet with the handheld camera. So we'll continue to provide the coverage of that. And in fact, we're going to provide continuous coverage of the journey home. We'll be here for quite some time as we break out from the keep out sphere and the approach ellipsoid and start making some of those calculated burns. There are 4 burns to bring us home. The first 2 happen pretty shortly after the fly-around maneuver. There's no holding. It's just the fly-around happens around the space station, and then if they get the go, they'll execute the depart burn 0. You can see here's the entire maneuver from, and this is where we are right now after the 50-second burn, the first quadrant of the fly-around going from the zenith or the space-facing to the aftmost part. Well, each of these different points that you see, fly-around burns 2, 3, and 4 will be 50-second burns. It's the same maneuver for each of these different sections, with the Dragon pointing towards the International Space Station every step of the way. We should be getting the same Dragon Eye camera views whenever we can. We'll be getting the external camera views from the space station looking out at Dragon, so we should get some pretty good coverage.
Endeavour, SpaceX on the big loop. The aft waypoint has been reached.
Never copies, we see that.
And with the aft waypoint reached, it means we are in that burn. So the burn, the 50-second burn to get from the aftmost position to the nadirmost position, so you see on this graphic, fly around burn 2 is now underway.
So if you've just joined us, Crew Dragon Endeavour has departed the space station with an undocking separation at 11:05 a.m. Pacific. They have now moved away from station and have begun the fly-around maneuver, which is essentially a photographic survey of the station.
And we did get confirmation that the full 50-second burn, the second of 4 burns, has been completed. We have a good fly around burn 2, or what's called the aft to nadir burn. So now we're in a cruise phase, and this cruise phase will take place for about 25 minutes. We'll be cruising from the very back of the station to the nadirmost point. We should be getting a sunrise here soon as well. In about 11 minutes, we should be getting a sunrise. So about halfway through, right about the position where you see the Dragon in this graphic, about halfway between the aftmost and the nadirmost point,
will be about when we start seeing the sun rise and start to illuminate the underside of the International Space Station. So Thomas Pesquet should be getting some fantastic shots of that section.
As we've mentioned before, the blackout on the video feed is expected. We knew that this was going to happen a number of times throughout the fly around, partially due to ground station coverage. And when we get those views back, we will bring them back to you as soon as we have them as well. But unfortunately, right now we don't have those views inside Dragon or of station.
Now, we should be getting some from station, hopefully soon. And as well as the Dragon, you've been seeing them very, very sporadic through this maneuver, which is anticipated. There are some handovers. It's a very long maneuver, about an hour and a half to get from the very top of the station and make essentially what is a full loop. It's a whole hour and a half. So through that time, we'll make essentially what is a full orbit of the Earth. We undocked right over the South Pacific Ocean, I believe. And then right around the time that the fly-around maneuver was executed, we were over the South Atlantic. So right about that time, we should be somewhere over the South Atlantic, right around the time the fly-around is complete.
But in the meantime, let's learn a little bit about the crew on board, starting with our commander, Shane Kimbrough. He is the commander of Crew Dragon spacecraft and the Crew-2 mission. Kimbrough is responsible for all phases of flight from launch to re-entry. Selected as a NASA astronaut in 2004, Kimbrough first launched aboard Space Shuttle Endeavour for a visit to the station on the STS-126 mission in 2008, and then aboard a Russian Soyuz spacecraft for his first long-duration mission for Expedition 4950 in 2016. After 199 days in space during Expeditions 65 and 66, he has spent a total of 388 career days in space, the fourth highest for any U.S. astronaut, and performed 9 career spacewalks. Kimbrough is also a retired U.S. Army colonel and earned a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York, and a master's degree in operations research from the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta.
Megan McArthur is the pilot of Crew Dragon spacecraft, and she's the second in command for the mission. McArthur is responsible for spacecraft systems and performance. Expeditions 65 and 66 was her very first trip to the International Space Station. She was selected as an astronaut in 2000, and McArthur launched on the Space Shuttle Atlantis as a mission specialist on STS-125, which was the final Hubble Space Telescope servicing mission in 2009. McArthur operated the shuttle's robotic arm over the course of the 12 days, 21 hours that she spent in space on shuttle, capturing the telescope and moving the crew members during the 5 spacewalks needed to repair and upgrade the telescope. She holds a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from the University of California, Los Angeles, and a doctorate in oceanography from the University of California, San Diego. She now has a career of 212 days in space.
Akihiko Hoshide is a mission specialist for Crew-2. As a mission specialist, he works closely with the commander and pilot to monitor the spacecraft during dynamic launch and re-entry phases of flight. Hoshide joined the National Space Development Agency of Japan, NASDA, which is currently JAXA, in 1992 and was selected as an astronaut candidate in February 1999. Hoshide is a veteran of 2 spaceflights in addition to Expedition 65-66. In June 2008, he flew to the International Space Station on the STS-124 mission to deliver the Japanese experiment module Kibo to the station. From July to November 2012, he stayed on the space station for 124 days as a flight engineer for the Expedition 32-33 mission. The Crew Dragon will be the 3rd spacecraft that he has flown to the orbiting laboratory. He commanded the station for Expedition 65 and performed 1 spacewalk, bringing his career total to 4. He spent a total of 340 days in space on his 3 flights, 8 days short of Koichi Wakata's record-setting mark of 348 days in space by a Japanese astronaut.
Thomas Pesquet is also a mission specialist for Crew 2, working with the commander and pilot to monitor the spacecraft during the dynamic launch and re-entry phases of flight. He was selected as an astronaut candidate by ESA in May of 2009 and worked as a Eurocom, communicating with astronauts during space flights from the Mission Control Center. He previously flew as part of Expeditions 50 and 51, launching aboard a Russian Soyuz spacecraft in October 2016, and he spent 196 days in space, returning to Earth in June of 2017. His mission also included 2 spacewalks to maintain the station, one to replace batteries on an electrical channel, and one to detect a cooling leak and service the robotic arm. He performed an additional 4 spacewalks for Expeditions 65 and 66 to outfit the station with new solar arrays, bringing his career total spacewalk to 6. He commanded the station for part of Expedition 66 and has a career total of 395 days in space, the most amount of time in space by any European Space Agency astronaut.
So if you just joined, sorry, go ahead.
So we are now still in a fly-around position. We just passed the first quadrant of 4, detailing and surveying the first, I guess, quarter of the maneuver, which is the space-facing side to the aftmost portion. That covers a